There we go. Good evening, everybody. Oh no, not like that. That's terrible. There we go. Much better. Good evening, everyone. I was working on an intro today, but then my kids needed help. So I was going to have a fun little intro. We'll get that going sometime. We'll get all profesh, maybe by the 20th episode. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are, middle of the night. We've got it all. We got Despot in the morning. We got Platoon middle of the night, and me here in the Corn Belt, middle of the evening. So this evening, we're going to be talking about the Odyssey mostly, and Christopher Nolan, because Despot, you have a video coming up soon about Christopher Nolan, right? That's your next big one?
Not soon. The video will be like 4.5 hours long. So I'm I'm reviewing all Christopher Nolan's movies from his debut up to the Odyssey. And at the minute, I'm writing the part about Dunkirk. I have rewatched Tenet, and so that's where I'm at in the script. It's easy to write a script, relatively easy to write a script about a shit, like just a Supergirl or something. Like Platoon recently released a video about Supergirl, by the way. Everybody check that out. That would be relatively easy. But when you're writing about fucking movies that there's a lot of good there, but there's also a lot of bad, a lot of mixed stuff, and you of course have to address the general consensus and explain why this movie isn't the masterpiece everyone thinks it is. That's really difficult and extremely time consuming. Lots of research goes into it too. So it's taken me forever to write the script, but it's worth it. It's nice to get away from all the sort of Hollywood slop and do something a bit more interesting. But that video will probably be out in late August, maybe even September. It's taken me ages.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to you. Got anything coming out in between then, or is that just the next big thing that you're going full bore on?
Yeah, I'm just going all in on the Nolan video.
All right. And then I was going to ask Platoon what's next, but you just dropped one a couple hours ago on Supergirl. So I'll reiterate that. Go check that one out. But what's going to be what's your next big thing?
Oh, it's going to be the Odyssey. Has to be the Odyssey. We did it on EFAB yesterday. Not to prelude the conversation later, but I sort of went in thinking, and then the longer I thought about it, it sort of downgraded from to O, and then from O to ooh. So it's moving its way down the list into I'm slightly pissed off by it, enough to make a video. Hopefully not a massively long video. So that will hopefully be out sometime this week, but we shall see.
You know, what's really interesting is I started writing a video on it today for I had the exact same thought process where I watched it and I thought, it's got some okay parts. That's fine. It's a spectacle. And then I started thinking about it because I would need to talk about it on stream. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, that sucked. And I'm pissed and the themes are pissing me off. And damn it, I think I might have to just write a 15-minute video about why a myth with no mythos is a shitty movie. And I followed the exact same. I'm glad I'm not the only one. That's good. All right, well, let's just jump into it. We're going to be talking about the Odyssey. Actually, I have one quick stop that I need to make first. This movie sucked ass. I just want to say it out loud publicly. This was garbage. I took my kids to see this. It's not often that I regret a movie ticket purchase. Even the Odyssey, we had a fun time. I got some popcorn, talked to the kids. Mike, I took all my kids, or not all of them, 4 of my kids, because they were super into the Odyssey with, Percy Jackson, just mythology, Greek mythology, all that kind of stuff. And they've been into this musical in the making. I don't know if you guys ever heard this. It's called Epic, the musical. It's going to be like an animated. It's somebody's hobby, just a passion project that this person has been doing for a couple of years. And they've got all the tracks and everything. They're trying to animate it. It's going to be years in the making. But so they're into it. They're into the story of the Odyssey. So I took 4 of them. And I had a fun time. And even though it wasn't the greatest movie, I rarely regret theater tickets. I regretted the time that I spent. If I had seen this movie for free, if somebody had paid me a small amount of money to watch this movie, I would have regretted the time that I spent to make that money. Minions and Monsters is absolute dog shit. And let me just tell you, it's an Illumination movie. So, they're not, none of these are deep, epic. It's all right. It's the Mario movies. It's the Gru, Despicable Me movies. It's the other Minion movies. Like, my bar was not super high. I just thought we'd have a fun time. We'd some cute little Minion guys, and there'd be some good music, maybe some little laughs, whatever. Everybody was bored. And this was me, Mrs. Owen, and all 6 kids, ranging 8 to 6. Everybody was bored to tears. There were multiple bathroom breaks. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was having fun. The only out loud laugh that I recall was during the credits. This is dog shit. And Illumination should be shamed and ashamed of themselves. Anyway, just want to get that out there because I don't know. There's nowhere else. I'm not making a video about that. There's nowhere else to put it. Either of you guys see this at all? I mean, I know you guys are huge Minion fans. You go see this one?
I don't think I've ever watched the Minions movie.
The closest I've got to a Minion is in the intro title slate for Mario Galaxy, because it's Illumination. So there's a Minion in the title slate. I've never seen anything more than that. That was enough for me. It's,
you know what? The other ones are cute. They're fun. You know, they're a fine way to pass time with kids. This was awful. This was an insult. This was, well, and a lot of it was like about 1920s Hollywood, which, as you guys probably know, kids are super into the old Hollywood aesthetic. They're super about that. So this was obviously a really good match for a kids movie. It's fucking ridiculous. All right. Despot, are you able to click comments and put them on the...
Let me have a look. Let me have a quick look here.
We're going to see if we can get this technicality, because what we want to do this evening is I want you guys, as we go, to tell us who you would have cast. Any character, just say the character and who you think would have been a good cast for that. Any redhead for Menelaus would have been fine. Anybody but a fucking bald guy for that redheaded king. So things like that. Anything that you think the casting could have been better. But just shout those out, and Despot has control of that now, and so do I. So we'll star those. We'll pop them up on screen as we go. But let's jump into the Odyssey. It just came out a couple of days ago, and as a warning, I don't know, I can't think of the word. Despot unfortunately cannot get access to this. Korea, Nolan is racist, and the Odyssey is not releasing in Korea for a couple of weeks. Won't be till August. So he unfortunately has not been able to see it, and wasn't even able to sail to see it, sadly. So he's going to hang back just a little bit while Platoon and I talk about this one. And it kind of sounds like we have a very similar opinion on this, that it was okay to begin with and then got worse and worse. What's your thought process on that, Platoon?
I think in the first place, it was quite clear from it's before even the third of the movie mark. This is not the Odyssey. This is not an adaptation of the Odyssey. This is almost the exact opposite of an adaptation of the Odyssey. What this is, as I said in EFAB yesterday, this is a Vietnam War movie. Again, it's kind of Boomer Slop. It's a story about a guy who goes to war believing it's the patriotic right thing to do, who sees grave war crimes, comes to doubt the worthiness and the cause that he has gone to fight in aid of, begins his journey back, has to deal with the fact that his world is complicated. It's full of draft dodgers, people, young kids who were sent to war by their parents because the rich guy didn't let his sons go. He goes to rehab. He gets addicted to opioids. He goes through therapy. He denies that he ever wants to go home because he thinks what he's done abroad will obviously reflect on his life back home. And then only toward the very, very end does he finally make amends and say, you know what, like a typical boomer, I'm going to go take my wife and sail into the sunlit uplands and leave my son to deal with the mess that I've wrought. So very, very modern movie in that respect. And the first bit of that I'm okay with. The Odyssey has always been an updated tale. It's remained remarkably accurate through centuries of updates, but you know the core aspects of the tales have always been there. But every single person adapting a version of the Odyssey has made some changes to make it slightly more relevant or resonant to the times in which they're writing. So that's what I thought we were getting for this. I thought it's like, okay, I get we've seen fucking $15,000 per stone Vietnam movies, but fine, we can do another one like that, and it's set in a different place. And I think you can tell some interesting things. It means the movie is not going to be empty. It's not a void. But as it progresses, the updates begin to really harm it. Not only do they basically make Odysseus not Odysseus, but it means that you really, really struggle then to capture any of the bare essentials even of his character, never mind the complexities and the nuances, which then make some of the decisions he makes go from being well-motivated, either by himself or by the gods, who aren't really in the movie at all, to instead being absurd and dumb and retarded. And he's kind of an idiot, and that's how they had landed so many of the messes in which they land. So overall, At the beginning, I thought, okay, it could be interesting. And then it was like, no, I don't like where this is going. And then by the end, it's like, actually, I kind of despise, I think, what you've done with this, Christopher Nolan. This isn't the Odyssey, and you should stop saying that it is. If you're not going to adapt it, if you don't care about the history, if all you want to do is another Vietnam movie, do a Vietnam movie, but don't come around telling me that this is an adaptation of one of the foundational works of Western civilization, because it sure ain't that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I didn't think of it as a Vietnam movie, but that's a great way to put it, because in the end, Odysseus has basically PTSD, and that's why he, says he's not coming home. All throughout the movie, and we'll be spoiling this for anyone that doesn't know the 3,000-year-old story. So at the end of the movie, all throughout the movie, he keeps making reference to not wanting to go home. He realizes he doesn't really want to go home. And Calypso keeps telling him, everybody keeps telling him, you don't really want to go home. And then you're wondering, what the hell does that mean? And then finally, he gives this speech to Penelope that, I'm not the same man. The same man didn't come home. You're absolutely right. It's Jarhead. It's every Vietnam. It's all of that. It's, the things I saw. I'm not the same guy. I'm not the same Odysseus that came home. And so yeah, he has PTSD, and then he takes credit for all of society collapsing. He says our Bronze Age is over because I ruined Zeus's law of hospitality by giving a gift that was actually a trap, and now nobody has any decency. All decency has been lost because of what I've done. I've ruined the entire world. That's why these people are in my house eating all my food. That's why there's these rumors of these like sea people all throughout the movie. Everybody's like, oh, we hear these rumors of the sea people. The sea people are coming to attack. And he finally gives the revelation that we are the sea people. Because we destroyed Troy in such a duplicitous manner. We've precipitated the disaster of the rest of and then afterward, he's like, well, then I just have to go into exile. I've ruined the world. Now I need to sail off into the literal sunset into the West as penance for all the things that I've ruined. And it was the most depressing ending. It was absolutely ridiculous. It took all the spine out of Odysseus. The thing that bothers me the most is that it's like any bad adaptation. When you remove half of the point, but you still feel like you need to have the set pieces in the rough order that they appear, and you need to have characters with the same names and whatever, you no longer have the same story. And so a lot of things just don't make any sense. And you get a bunch of stuff that is just kind of there because it's supposed to be there, but it makes no sense whatsoever. Nolan really leaned in to the theme of hospitality. That was his big thing, and that is a theme in the book. The hospitality of Zeus, taking care of strangers because they might be gods in disguise. It's you can't turn away strangers. You can't attack people in your own home. This whole hospitality culture thing. It's very important to the story, and so Nolan really leaned into that. But like I said, he took it to another level where Odysseus basically blames himself for destroying all of hospitality with the Trojan horse. And then, you get this sad, depressing ending that just kind of goes nowhere.
He even says, to quote him directly, to burn the walls of Troy was to burn the world entire. One man's idea to break Zeus's law forever. So according to this movie, the rules governing hospitality and how you treat guests in your own home, and also how you behave as a guest in somebody else's, are also the laws of war, which, as far as I understand, it was never how it was interpreted, but it also makes no sense just on its own terms. So Odysseus breaks Zeus's law by winning a battle, by actually saving a bunch of people's lives. It's the whole nuclear bomb argument from Oppenheimer all over again. The Trojan horse probably saves more lives than it costs because, of course, it ends a very long, protracted siege and ensures that one half of the combatants suffer way fewer casualties and the net loss is probably less. But by doing all of that, he's broken Zeus's law. So when Paris runs off with Helen from within somebody else's household, Is that not the thing? Is surely that's the original sin that ends the Bronze Age, which they weren't living in and didn't believe they were living in, because it hadn't even been invented as a concept when they're alive. And then later it was known as the heroic age. All of this shit it's a load of nonsense, but it's made even more, I think, aggravating by the fact that Helen is in the movie, and the movie so clearly takes her side. It changes the whole Trojan War from being, this is importantly a story about heroism, and a large part of the motive is to strike out for heroism, to right aggressions and perceived wrongs and all the rest of that. Of course, there's some cynicism in Agamemnon's motive, but the story is one of the Age of Heroes, and he changes that to, Odysseus says to his wife before he leaves, Helen's just an excuse. Agamemnon wants to shatter Troy's control on the trade routes. So already it's like, okay, so Helen, but still, she provided the excuse though, didn't she? And the movie's like, no, we're not going to address that. Then you meet her later, and she's like, I did nothing wrong. This was all your brother's ambition. Then you meet her again later, and she says, tell your mother I'm sorry for all the deeds done in my name, as though she has no responsibility for running off with Paris, for starting the entire war to begin with. It's the movie's very, very. It's probably never at its worst, even when it does take the side of its female. I don't say heroes because it's the wrong word for it. Female characters. In fact, that might even be the wrong word too. It's female entities. It takes their side every single time. It gets very confused on who Penelope is supposed to be, basically from the beginning. She's pining for Odysseus. She only wants Odysseus. Then at some time she's like, oh, it's terrible that the patriarchy doesn't let me sit on the throne. I've been sitting on the throne for 10 years, Tom Holland. You're just a boy. But no, because you're a boy, you get to rule when I've been doing the job. My experience counts for nothing. So what exactly is your motive? Are you envious of power? Or are you reluctantly on the throne because you're only waiting for Odysseus to return? Because that's kind of what you're supposed to be. So it takes Helen's side, it takes Penelope's side, it makes both of those characters nonsensical. Obviously, it makes further changes to Helen by having Clytemnestra being her actual twin, there is even the joke line in the movie, and this because she's now been scarred by Menelaus, which makes also no sense. Why would he scar the one trophy he went to fight for? Right. He turns her face around and says, I guess she's only the face that sank 500 ships now, but she can't be. She's the face that sank that launched 250 ships because she has an identical twin sister. So what the hell was the point in going to war for this unique beauty who isn't unique anymore? It's like in the little things the movie makes no sense on its own terms, and in the big strokes as an adaptation is where I think it is most egregious. Yeah, well, I want to get to that because it removes all mythos. But while we're on the subject of the movie just agreeing, so people are going to argue, like, is it a woke movie? Is it this? Is that, like, I don't know that I would go that far to call it that, but I would say that you can tell that they're trying to from the comments from Lupita about, I would ask Homer what he thinks about screen time, because of how much time you gave to the female characters. I'm going to say that as smugly as possible. I can't match her amount of smugness, but everybody keeps talking about that. And the movie absolutely tries to softens the role of women when they do bad things, because it wants to give more of like this female perspective, is what Nolan keeps saying. It's what Lupita keeps saying. But it also cut out a bunch of female roles that were in the story. Athena is basically not present. I mean, she's there. She's present on screen, but it's just Zendaya scowling,
doing this. That's it. And in the book, Athena is instrumental to the story. Athena is the Deus Ex Machina that ends the story at the very end. When everyone comes to attack Odysseus at the end, Athena is the one that finally stands in and says, let's put a stop to this shit. She's the one that gets Zeus to remember Odysseus at all. She guides Odysseus the entire time. Like, she is instrumental in this story. And in the movie, she's just kind of there. Doesn't really do much, just sort of stares at Odysseus and he looks at her. I mean, honestly, if I didn't know the story, I would think that it was a figment of his imagination. The way that she's portrayed, it makes it seem like his ex-wife that died or something, or a daughter that died, and he keeps seeing her because she doesn't say much and he just looks at her wistfully. So it doesn't make any sense. But that extends on to Calypso and Circe as well. Circe, I think, was the most egregious. It was absolutely disgusting, where because they removed all of the supernatural elements, Hermes does not show up. to stop Odysseus from going into Circe. He doesn't give him the Molly, doesn't give him any strategy for how to defeat Circe, whatever. So the men go, they go up to Circe's shack, which is not the halls of Circe, and she's not the nymph with the lovely braids. She's just kind of a homely old woman who gets scared by them and then feeds them some food, but tells them, put your armor outside. And they go outside and they put their armor down and they see a whole bunch of other armor, like old, dusty, half-buried armor. And the guy sees it and goes, huh, that's weird. And then heads on back inside to get some dinner. Like, we make a point to see the other armor. He's like, man, something's fishy. Anyway, soup time. So they go inside and there is a very grotesque transformation scene where she feeds them the food. They start slurping it up and then they kind of like can't control themselves and it seems like they're in pain. And she starts massaging their faces and it's really gruesome and turns them into pigs. And Odysseus shoots the stag that is bestowed upon him by the gods, but it actually, when he comes up to the dead body, it's a guy. It's a man. So he realizes something's off. He goes to the shack and there's no Hermes. There's nobody to warn him. And he just kind of catches on. And Circe gives him this whole speech about how, well, your men were going to hurt me. And he's like, well, did they? And she goes, no, but they would have, because you're all you men are the same. You're all violent. You take advantage. You take what you want. She gives him this monologue about how, did you have to command your men to destroy Troy, or did they just do it themselves because all of you are just violent pieces of shit? And he just kind of shrugs like, well, we just really want to go home. Like his response is pathetic. He doesn't rebuke her or rebut her in any way whatsoever. She just has this ridiculous monologue. And then he goes, we're so sad. We just want to go home. And then threatens to kill a crow that is actually her sister, which, again, not in the book. We're just making shit up for no reason whatsoever. And
that bit in particular, it really undercuts what the movie is trying to do. What the movie is trying to do is, with most of the people you come across, with the exception of the Cyclops, with the exception of the Giants, most of the other people you come across and are supposed to represent in some ways the victims of war. These are the victims of the sea people, and obviously the twist is that the Greeks are the sea people. The problem particularly with Circe is exactly the Raven, because the Raven is the crow, who is her sister, which is played for a joke. So he understands, he kind of cottons on that this crow, which could be anyone, just as he shot the fucking deer, and that could have been anyone. He figures, well, the crow's in the cage, so it must be one of your relatives. So when she goes to stab him, because he sees one of the rings he gave to one of his men in the bowl of stew, that stops her, and he says, was this someone you loved? Was it your mother, maybe your sister? And she gives him a look. It's clearly the sister. Now, if the movie wants to tell me that Circe is motivated by being essentially the victim of war, that maybe the old armor is because some other men did arrive as soldiers and did try to take advantage of her in the ways that she describes, you're undercutting that when you later say she lets them go. Odysseus says, what about the crow? And she says, well, we just get on better this way. So it's like, so in that case, your motive here isn't in fact to take vengeance upon people who were wronging you. It's not against soldiery. It's not against men. You turn any people into any animal who's crossed you for any reason ever. So you're actually evil. And the movie is trying to tell me that you're not. And they play that as a joke. And then one of the men quite rightly says, we need to kill her because she's a witch. Who gave her her powers? And Odysseus is going through his Reddit atheist phase and says, your gods. Yeah. Because at this point, even though he speaks to Athena, he doesn't really, well, he sort of believes he's conflicted on the other gods. And I think the movie's also conflicted on the other gods. But that scene is sort of like in isolation, weirdly one of the stronger ones in the entire movie, but it's also totally broken, which is kind of indicative of everything there is to praise about the movie. The scene with the Cyclops, individually, in total isolation, just while they're in the cave, there are one or two instances of it where you think, it's kind of cool. Creature design is good, sound design is good. The fact that and I think Nolan has said he borrowed a lot from Del Toro in portraying the monster not as a self-conscious monster, but as a dispassionate killer of people because it sees them as ants. Like that's effective. Unfortunately, you then keep cutting away to the soldiers who just don't react to this with the horror that they really should. But then it goes really downhill the minute they escape. because rather than do the clever wordplay that you find in the book, which then tells you so much about Odysseus' character, the nobody pun, where Odysseus says, "My name is nobody." The Cyclops says, "Nobody is attacking me." His fellow Cyclops, they're not in the film. They then think, well, nothing's wrong. They leave him. And then only after he's escaped does Odysseus, in this fit of pique and almost narcissism and ego, turn around and say, "My name is Odysseus," which then, of course, feeds into Poseidon's rage against him. The movie is like, no, that doesn't happen. They just get out, having blinded the Cyclops. Then he just randomly turns around and shoots it in the face with an arrow, and so it chases them, kills a bunch more of them, and then it asks Poseidon for help. If he hadn't done that, they'd have been fine. One of the many decisions he makes that gets a load of his people killed. The movie thinks it's being thematically clever by doing this, and it's really not. It's making Odysseus retarded, and one of his main things is that he is not retarded. He's very clever. And I find it very difficult to invest in the story, which is motivated entirely by idiocy, but so many of his decisions are stupid. Why does he not follow Agamemnon back from Troy? Well, his excuse is, I got bored of following him, so we'll go a different way. Why does he get chased by the Cyclops? Oh, he shoots it. Why does all of his men get killed by the giants? Well, he decides, no, we're not going to run away immediately. We're going to stop and wait till all of the men that they're killing get back on board the boats, and then we'll leave. And then, of course, everybody fucking dies. He's just an idiot. An absolute moron. And it gets a little bit boring as well, because you make a lot of these criticisms. And some people will say, oh, it's just like anti-woke, right-wing conservative talking points. Like, nothing I've said here touches on casting. Nothing I've said here touches really on the perceived politics of the creator. These are all faults in adaptation, and also faults in the film as a whole. The adaptation is balked, so when it tries to lift scenes, it lacks the motivating reasoning because it doesn't adapt those parts, so the movie itself makes very little sense. That's all movie criticism. That's not political criticism. And I think a large part of it comes down to the fact that, for all everybody knows how to say that the Odyssey is this foundational work of Western literature, Western society and culture, very few people have actually read it. So not many people, I don't think, are particularly attached to the way the story goes. So the way I'd always put it is like, imagine if this was something that was calling itself The Lord of the Rings. It was an adaptation in which Frodo, in the Shire, says, you know what? I think when Isildur took the ring from Sauron, that was kind of like original sin, and it shattered the bonds of friendship between the elves and Mordor. And so really, it's all our fault. And I don't want to take the ring to Mordor. And then I don't want to go back to the Shire and remember the strawberries and the green fields and all the rest of it, because I actually just want to leave because, you know, I'm just traumatized by war and shit. And so actually the world's fucked and the gods don't exist. The elves should probably deserve to die, and the age of men should fail. That's kind of like what this movie's doing. It's a bit of a parody, but it's not that much of a parody.
What I was thinking was this one, we're going to talk about Christopher Nolan movies, and I've seen 10 or 11 of them at this point. And a lot of what happened is what I was afraid was going to happen. It is Christopher Nolan doing the Odyssey. And if you've seen a bunch of Christopher Nolan, that is the insult that I mean it to be. Christopher Nolan he makes a certain type of film. And to carry on with your Lord of the Rings point, if Wes Anderson made the Odyssey, it would be fucking stupid, because it would be a bunch of quirky music and weird colors, and it would be a Wes Anderson movie. And you would think, why the hell is Wes Anderson making the Odyssey? Well, that's exactly how I felt when I heard Christopher Nolan was making the Odyssey, and I really started to look at more of his movies and what his themes are and how he likes to approach things. He should not be telling this story. He likes to tell up close, grounded, morally gray. The hero is actually the creator of his own problems stories, and the Odyssey is it doesn't fit with any of that. And you're absolutely right. We're talking about like writing issues, and the writing issues and the adaptation issues go together. So Menelaus basically has no point in this movie at all, and so that creates a problem with pacing where Telemachus goes to find news of his father. He sails over to Menelaus because, I mean, this is the brother of the king. He should know something, right? And in the story, Menelaus tells him, yes, I do actually have news of Odysseus because of a really weird story where he fought the old man of the sea while wearing a seal skin and wrestled him, and he was a shapeshifter. Just a fucking weird part of the story. But anyway, he says, this guy told me how to get home, and he also told me that Odysseus is, marooned on an island with this witch Calypso. So he does have news. In the movie, the Menelaus side quest, it does nothing. And I counted it. It's 25 minutes, or I'm sorry, it's 25 minutes before Telemachus leaves. It's another 10 minutes of being in Menelaus' house where nothing happens. We just confirm that Menelaus does not know, and he gives this sarcastic, you've seen it in the trailers, does anybody have a rumor about Odysseus? Some people say he's in jail, some people say he's dead, whatever. Well, if you're not going to let him have the piece of information that he has in the story, why is he in this film at all? And it's little decisions like that where when you do an adaptation and you change a kind of a load-bearing part of the story, you have to make up for it somehow. And Nolan in this one just decides, fuck it. I'm just going to make Menelaus an asshole. He's marred Helen, the woman that everybody went to war for 10 years about. He's ashamed of what he's done. He's arguing with Helen. She thinks the war is horrible and gives him jibes constantly about it. Everybody's just unhappy. And then Telemachus just goes, well, this sucks. We're just going to leave. And that's it. That's all that happens.
So
why would you waste 20 minutes of movie on that? Sorry, what were you saying?
Because you're missing one very, very important scene. It's a really, really important scene. It's the whole reason Telemachus is in the movie at all, which is toward the end of his time with Menelaus. Menelaus says, you need to lead, son. And then Telemachus goes home. And now he's an adult. That's it. Like you can actually cut Telemachus basically out of the film. If he just stays in the hall with the suitors, getting bullied a bit, and then Odysseus comes back, and then the rest of the film happens, nothing changes. You don't need Telemachus because he doesn't go to visit Nestor. He doesn't learn anything from Menelaus. What the movie thinks it's trying to do is to say, oh, he leaves a boy and comes back a man. But he doesn't learn anything. He goes there and he learns, oh yeah, he goes there thinking, I think my dad's still alive. He learns, yeah, I think my dad's still alive. Then what's his name, who plays Menelaus, who's also just playing the same version of every other character he plays, says, learn to lead, son. So then he goes back, does nothing, because the movie has so perverted the rules of Zeus's law that he's not allowed to assist in the fight against the suitors. So he's not allowed to prove himself a worthy fighter. So he's not allowed actually to prove that he's ready to be king. And that is really another problem for the movie because of the way it ends. Because obviously in the Odyssey, Odysseus comes back and resumes his throne, but in this version, he comes back and fucks off. Telemachus becomes the new king of Ithaca, but he's not ready for it. He's done nothing. He's not learned anything. He's shown no skills. He learned precisely one fighting move, and he used that precisely one time. He's not learned anything about like wisdom, what it takes to rule. He's not even learned really any more perseverance than he already had. He's just a filler. You could just cut him out of the movie and you would lose nothing. And that's Telemachus. That's like one of the more important characters in the story. So
and for the verbal abuse that he receives from Penelope about how he's just selfish, he's a child, he just wants to rule in his father's stead, he doesn't deserve it, she should be ruling except she's a woman, this, that, and the other. I mean, she berates him constantly. And then once Odysseus gets back, she's like, oh shit, I'm sailing away. Here's a crown. You're in charge. Peace out. You're the king now. And it's just fine suddenly. Like, yeah, there's no growth for this character at all.
And it does need to be stressed as well. Odysseus is the one who says that our age of bronze is collapsing. She also believes that the age of bronze is collapsing. They both believe, both of the parents in the story, and the king and the queen of Ithaca believe that the age they live in is collapsing and chaos and violence and ruin is upon them. So they abandon their son, who they haven't trained, to fuck off to the west. What kind of moral of a story is that?
It's the issue with this is when you remove the gods, the moral of this story, and this is probably Nolan's most postmodern take on pretty much anything, because there really are no morals. There's no real right and wrong other than just, the golden rule, do unto others and be nice to people, just can we all get along? And it is his most postmodern of just people just kind of suck. That's the moral of this story, is that people just suck ass. The Circe's, diatribe about the guys and just men being men, and they're just going to be violent pieces of shit no matter what. Everything Odysseus does, he's an idiot. His crew is constantly just violent for no reason. The moral, the suitors are terrible, which is true to the story at least. The moral of the story is that men suck. People in general are terrible, and that's pretty much it. That's the moral. And it's depressing and sad and stupid.
And if you do one bad thing in order to win a war, that means everybody else, for vaguely spiritual reasons, I suppose, or what other thing connects the suitors to Troy, they all decide that they can all break Zeus's law as well. So it's Nolan thinks that he's making some kind of profound thing, and he said in interviews he thinks it's one of his most relevant films because it's talking about the values of comradeship and friendship and how you must be regard strangers with honor and treat them with dignity, which is all fine as vague, broad statements, but how does that actually get represented in the film? It kind of doesn't.
Right.
Who restores these bonds of friendship? Nobody restores the bonds of friendship. Odysseus comes back and kills everybody. Then he leaves. So there's no bonds of friendship have been solved there. All he does is that he accepts that he's going to have to be exiled because by killing the suitors who were trying to steal his wife from him, that also violates Zeus's law. So that's the reason Telemachus can't get involved in the fight, because if he kills one of the suitors, even though they're in open revolt against their king, that means he would also be exiled and Ithaca would be left with nobody on the throne. The Zeus's law thing is so tortured by the weight that's been put on it. It's unsustainable. And therefore the movie doesn't really say anything with it. What am I supposed to learn? Be kind to strangers. Unless they're really shit, then kill them. Just accept the consequences of killing them and leave. I don't think that's a very useful lesson, Chris. Do you want to try that again?
Well, and when they reference Zeus a lot, as you said. I mean, the whole law of Zeus thing, I mean, it's just beating you over the head. They reference Poseidon a little bit, and that's pretty much it. I'm not sure if Athena gets called by name, but again, removing the gods makes a lot of things make no sense. For example, you have basically Agamemnon is sort of the villain. I'm not really the villain, but he's a definite antagonist of the film. I do think that his Batman costume with the golden vertebrae hanging off, it actually did work. It was really cool. He was really imposing. When he showed up on scene, he didn't speak. He just sort of loomed. It was really neat. It did work. But to make him an asshole, they talk about how he sacrificed his daughter for fair winds. And that is the excuse they use for his wife killing him when he gets home. Not that she just took a lover, didn't like him anymore, and they plot to kill him. No, he killed her daughter. And that's why she's mad. She's a spurned mother. And so it's okay that she kills him. The issue is that when you take the gods out, he just seems like a psychotic weirdo that threw his infant daughter into the sea for fair winds, when the real story is that his grown, marriageable age daughter was demanded as a sacrifice by Artemis because Agamemnon killed a stag that was sacred to Artemis or whatever. So by removing the Greek gods from the story, you just have random guy who dresses edgily kills infant for no reason whatsoever other than he hopes the sailing is good. And that really alters the way the story flows, and it alters the characteristics, because Agamemnon is a famously arrogant character. He is kind of an asshole in all of the Greek stories. He does, in many tellings, eventually kill his daughter because, Greece is riding on this war. He believes he has to do it, whatever. But in this one, they just kind of show him tossing a toddler into the ocean for just because.
And they borrow, I think is it the Aristea Aeschylus, where the idea that his Clytemnestra kills him because of the daughter is introduced. So that's, Nolan does borrow a few things that are not from the Odyssey, but from sort of related works in the. So that's one of them. But the movie's not actually interested in giving Agamemnon or anybody else anything by way of character. It's almost one of the more. I don't know, I almost appreciate it more, the fact that he just throws his daughter off a cliff and gives no thought to it. Because it's one of the more culturally alien things that the movie doesn't try to soften with modernity. Same thing with when Eumaeus tosses one of the dogs off a cliff. It's like, and the movie makes no comment on that. I wanted more of that because these were alien times. The past is a foreign country, as I said. They do things very differently there. And I think part of the purpose of telling stories like this is to remind us who we used to be. Some of the things they did were so much worse than what we do now. But sometimes, in some of the values they used to hold to, are some things that are worth learning. So I would way prefer a more faithful adaptation for that reason, as well as for other artistic reasons. But on Agamemnon, so you learn all of this quite late on. Obviously, you do get the bit where Odysseus travels to Hades to speak to the Shades. This is where we learn from Agamemnon what happened, because Menelaus won't tell Telemachus. He refuses to tell because he doesn't want to, because the plot doesn't have room for that at that time.
Right. Who cares?
So he's like, no, not now. Someone will learn it later. Leave. So he goes to Hades, speaks to Agamemnon, and it takes fucking ages because you have to get through Sinon first, who again is not in the Odyssey, is borrowed heavily from the Iliad, and I think is more prevalent in some of Aeschylus' stuff too. I have to get through Sinon bitching about the draft dodger back home, Vietnam again. And then finally you get to Agamemnon, and you think, okay, finally, this guy who we've been built up to be this most impressive looking person, he is the most impressive looking thing in the entire movie. He's finally going to speak. We're finally going to learn what happened to him and why.
Yes.
And he speaks, and he sounds like Rota the Hutt from the Star Wars movie. Such a shit voice. And the only information he gives is, yeah, Clytemnestra, she killed me. Be careful of homecomings. Great. That took how long to get that information? It's really disappointing.
I mean, I almost laughed out loud in the theater when he started speaking, because the delivery, first of all, I mean, he sounded like me as far as like pitch and register, okay, which I'm not, I don't love it, but hey, this is the vocal cords I got. And so he sounds like me, and except not nearly as excited. He sounded like somebody held that cue card up and he'd read those words for the first time in his life. I mean, it was just, yes, my wife killed me when I got home. Be wary. Do not walk in the front door expecting a hero's welcome. Beware. And then just floats away. It was so I was expecting like a James Earl Jones voice coming from this suit of armor. No, it was absolutely awful. God, it was so bad. And also there was no Achilles.
No Achilles, yeah, because Sinon takes Achilles' place, which was a choice. It was funny, because it's one of the examples of how the marketing sort of baited a lot of the backlash, because it relied on people who did know the original work saying, I recognize this place. So obviously Elliot Page has to be playing Achilles, because Sinon isn't in the Odyssey and certainly isn't in that part of the Odyssey. Yeah. So it kind of invited that. And then, of course, now you get, well, it wasn't Achilles, and some people haven't quite caught on to that fact yet because they haven't seen the film. But it was, and the marketing was appalling in that respect, because it relied on people's knowledge, but then it gave them everything that would piss them off if it were true. And then it just hoped that they would see the movie to learn that it wasn't. So Sinon is there because it's continuing the Vietnam allegory. This is the poor son of a farmer who is sent in place of the rich kid who was supposed to be there. And Odysseus has to tell a lie in order to get Sinon to believe the lie, because otherwise there's a chance he may have spilled the truth about the Trojan horse to the Trojans. But it's kind of... I don't think it's not one of the worst aspects of the movie. And I don't think Elliot, beyond the little hobbit joggle that she does down on the beach at the beginning, is not really objectionable in the movie. It's just another example where the theme of the film is weighing so heavily on it that the characters just don't really exist. You know where this is going because you've seen the archetype before, and then you have to see it several times, and you get all the way to hell, and lo and behold, they hit you with the theme again. Yeah. And it's just not very fun. It's not interesting. And you learn nothing about anybody else involved in it either. It's just Odysseus is guilty because he told lies to people who needed to believe them. He led men into death, and he lied to win a victory. And so he's traumatized by what he saw in war. That's it. And you know that from basically the beginning of the film. So at this point, you're nearly 3 hours into the film, and it's kind of starting to wear on you just a little bit. It's quite bleak and unremitting, and there's not a huge amount of variety in it. I don't remember the names of any of his crew. They're not important. They don't have characters, but nobody else really does either. He spends the entire movie on the island with Calypso, and you're supposed to believe, I guess she tells you that she was really happy with him and that they were kind of in love. You wouldn't guess it, though, from when they leave each other, because she's just like, yeah, I guess it's time for you to go. Bye.
Well, and that's another one that they try to soften Calypso to not really holding him prisoner. She saw how traumatized he was and fed him lotus fruit to help him forget so that he could heal from his injuries, and then accidentally fell in love with him and really wanted to let him go, but she just wanted to make sure he was okay. And, you know, she's not an evil witch that's holding him prisoner. She's just accidentally fell in love and is about to let him go any day now. She just is having a difficult time. So again, we're downplaying that character, but we're making Odysseus and his crew bloodthirsty animals at every turn.
So Odysseus is no longer a sex slave at the start?
Nope.
And because I was wondering how, I knew he wouldn't do it. I knew there's no way that Nolan is going to accurately portray Odysseus being kept essentially as a sex slave, and then the gods tell the nymph, okay, look, you have to let this guy go. That's enough. You've had him for a decade. Let him go. Let him. And then he builds a ship and he takes off. I knew that Nolan wasn't going to do that and that he was going to somehow try to justify it, but that is an odd one, because if Odysseus is with Calypso by choice, well, then he's betrayed Penelope, which kind of just destroys him as a character, because a major part of his character is that he's loyal to his wife and he's trying to get back to her and to his kingdom. 2 seconds, guys.
Yep. Well, in this version, she's feeding him lotus flowers. So they skip the Lotus Island. There's no lotus eaters, and she has the lotus flower, and she's feeding him lotus flowers every day. So he's not really betrayed Penelope. He's been in a lotus stupor for the 6 years. But yeah, she says they were happy together, but he's been in a fog for years at this point. So yeah, I don't really, but it wasn't bad. She wasn't really holding him prisoner. They were just kind of there.
I mean, she's the therapist archetype. That's what she provides him medication. She takes care of his mind. She gives him the lotus flowers so that the pain will be of his body, not of his mind, is what she says. So she, in a way, like she's trying to coax the trauma out of him. And the movie uses an amnesia device to begin with him remembering nothing. And as she gradually withdraws the treatment, he begins remembering. And she does this in accordance with her therapeutic plan to make sure he only remembers things when he's ready to remember them, which also happen to be at the most convenient moments for the plot. So he's not betrayed Penelope. He doesn't remember who she is. He doesn't remember he even has a wife or a kid. He doesn't betray her in that scene. He does, though, betray her earlier chronologically, but toward the end of the movie, one of the final memories when he goes through and he hears the Song of the Sirens. And he's asked after the fact, what did the song tell you? And he said, well, the song is everything you ever wanted, but then it becomes everything you ever feared, and everything you feared is everything you've lost. The promises you failed to keep. The song told me I never really wanted to go home. Odysseus never really wanted to go home. So that's kind of the betrayal of the wife and the kid. It's not with Calypso, who's just the nice therapist helping him through trauma. She just reveals to him that he'd already betrayed Penelope earlier in the story. He just forgot that he'd done that.
I have a question about Antinous, because reading the book, Antinous is maybe my favorite character, because he's so hateable. He's such a wonderful villain because he's a brilliant orator. Because Telemachus will make a perfectly valid point about how you bastards are in my house, eating up my wealth, eating up my inheritance, torturing and harassing my mother. And I can't do a fucking thing about it because I'm in legal limbo. If I don't get rid of my mother and become the head of the household, I can't really... my father's not legally dead, so I can't inherit anything. So he's caught in this horrible legal limbo, which is why it doesn't make much sense, by the way, if you're a man to tell him, just become a man, son. Like, it doesn't change anything. He's legally not allowed to do anything. That's the point.
Right.
And that's what's so frustrating to him. So he's trying to get rid of them, but and the suitors don't really know how to respond to Telemachus, but it's Antinous and his brilliant oratory who is able to kind of put Telemachus in his place and make out that it's actually Penelope who's the bad guy here, and the suitors are just doing what's right, and they could be off finding other wives elsewhere, and we don't want to be here. We're forced to be here. We're just doing our duty. How is Antinous portrayed in the movie? Is he that sort of brilliant, clever, snakish orator? Or?
Would you like some lines from him directly? Because I wrote them all down.
Yes.
Right. The first exchange with Telemachus, bearing in mind, it's been, 8 years since Odysseus has begun. They've all been here for ages. The suitors have been around for years at this point. Their first exchange begins with, they start off with an argument, and Telemachus is he's just generically bitching about them eating all of his food and drinking all of his wine. Antinous says, we've been welcome here so long because your mother won't choose. Telemachus says, she's already married. Antinous says, Odysseus is dead. Telemachus says, what do you know about my dad? Antinous says, I know he never came home. Not yet. You're pining for a daddy you didn't even know, like some sniveling bastard. Then Telemachus says, since none of us can really know who our fathers are, don't claim to know mine. And then Antinous says, but I did know him. As boys, we watched him hunt. I tried to volunteer for his expedition to Troy, but he told me to stay here and keep an eye on you. And it just goes on like this.
See, that's poor, because Antinous is two-faced. He's supposed to be polite and upstanding. Like in one scene, he's plotting to kill. He's plotting with his bros to actually kill Telemachus when Telemachus comes home in his ship after his brief sojourn to try to find information about Odysseus. And then he goes to Penelope and says, by my very life, by all the gods, I will do everything I can to defend Telemachus. And it shocks me to hear of this villainous scheme. He's this very two-faced character. So to see him turn around to Telemachus and call him a sniveling bastard, it's not even like he's being mischaracterized. It's as if Nolan has just he's just invented his own character and completely ignored what is in the poem.
Yep. And all of the dialogue is like what I've just read out. It's almost, I think we compared it to if you were in a writer's room and you were charting on your whiteboard the beats you needed to hit, and then you never actually bothered turning them into dialogue. You just turned the notes into dialogue. All of the dialogue is just characters saying, here is who I am, what I'm doing, and why. Very matter-of-factly. And no matter who the character is either, even Menelaus, when you first meet him, Menelaus says, you probably know who I am. My name is Menelaus. I'm the son of Atreus. I'm brother of Agamemnon. I'm the husband of Helen of Troy. Do you know Helen of Troy? Look, here she is. It's so flat and boring. And when Antinous, because most of that beat does remain where he does plot this betrayal as Telemachus is returning from Sparta. He plots to ambush him at the temple at Pylos and get him killed. But he's overheard doing this by Eumaeus, who's like obviously blind, but he has very good hearing. So he hears the conspiracy. And then he's spotted overhearing the conspiracy, and he's dragged out before Antinous. And Antinous just says, that's fine. And then they just let him go.
Just get out of here. Get out of here, you old man. Okay.
Robert Pattinson is still the best performance in the movie. You agree with that?
Oh, no, he is the best performance 100%. In the movie, to be sure, because everybody else is awful. It's probably Tom Holland's worst performance. Yeah, it's maybe one of Anne Hathaway's worst performances as well.
So I saw an interview. I was looking up a quote from Holland, because Holland's been on Twitter defending the movie because he's in it, which is fine. Like, I get that. But he's fuck you haters. It's doing great. Look at all these critic scores, this, that, and the other. And while I was looking for the comments, I came across an interview with him where they were asking him, how old is Telemachus? And he's like, I don't know, like 16. And he played him like an angsty teenager. Well, hold on. I don't know if he is such an amazing actor that's why I hated the character so much, or if it is really one of his, it's like a worse Peter Parker. I really hated this character, and I was deciding, my oldest daughter said the same thing. Like, I'm not sure if he did a terrible job or if he did such a good job of playing a sniveling little 15-year-old kid that wants to put on daddy's clothes and be a big man, but he really sucks at it. Like, maybe he did such a good job at that I really hated the character. I can't tell. I really can't tell which one it is, but I know that I hated every time he was on screen. And the dialogue is just atrocious. I mean, it feels like it was written by a YA novel author. Just everybody speaks in the most basic fourth grade language. It's like it's newspaper writing. It's the most basic shit imaginable. It's awful.
Yeah, Antinous has to be at least 21 because the Trojan War takes 9 years, and then Odysseus is stranded with Calypso for 10 years. So he really needs to be about 21, 22. Like, he's that's actually a very important aspect of his character because he's fully grown into manhood. He's not a teenager anymore. There's no sort of latent boyishness there. He's a fully grown man, and he expects to inherit his household and to have. It's not just about the household. It's not just about the material wealth. That's it matters, but it's not that important. What is really important is status as a man that has come into his own in society, and he feels he's being denied that. And the frustration he feels at that he's being forced into this kind of perpetual boyhood because he's unable to inherit the status and the wealth that is his by right. Yeah. It sounds like none of that is there at all.
No, not at all. It's just all the themes are gone except for the theme of hospitality, which is you are bludgeoned over the head with constant. It reminds me of the first Batman movie, which was about fear. It was about fear. There was about being afraid and facing your fear and making the villains know their fear and being afraid of Batman and their fear being turned against them. It was like that, except with Zeus's hospitality thing. So it's just, I don't know. we've shit on it a ton. There are some cinematic choices that are good. Like Nolan's good with the visuals. His writing is shit. His dialogue is shit. He's not a great writer. But I do like the look of the movie. Like overall, the coloring, the cinematography, Nolan being the practical effects guy, it did look really good. And there was one particular scene that I do want to point out was actually quite genius, where Robert Pattinson is talking to Penelope. I can't remember his name ever, but he's talking to her, and basically he's saying, look, I know you're, they haven't figured out the whole weaving thing, but he has. He's the only one, because one of the housemaids is sleeping with him. And he's sitting behind the loom and talking to her about how, you got to pick somebody. All of this needs to end, whatever. He's giving that same speech that he would be giving to Telemachus to her. And the shot is really interesting because the sunlight is coming from behind, and the camera is facing, it's viewing them through the loom. And the way the sunlight plays, Pattinson kind of disappears, and you can only really see Penelope. So you hear his voice, you see Penelope, but you don't really see Pattinson. So he's representing just the idea, the temptation of getting rid of this whole situation and just being done and picking a suitor and whatever. He kind of is faceless and just represents that reality for Penelope, and not his character specifically. And the fact that the way they made him kind of disappear, it was very good. It was very well done. That shot was really, really good in what it represented. And a lot of the shots, they feel big. It feels epic, but the story itself it's just garbage. It's just a bad story because half the story is missing because the gods are missing. How do you tell the Odyssey without the gods? It's terrible.
It's ironic as well, because in getting rid of so many, if not all of the gods, Nolan gives less screen time to women than Homer does. And yet, Homer's the one accused of giving not enough screen time to women. And for every impressive shot, I mean, there are a few which just look, I think some of the ones inside Troy look kind of cheap. It's Nolan refuses to do big panoramic, anything which requires significant amounts of CGI, he doesn't do. So that means that you don't really get a huge amount of sense of scale in the attack on Troy in particular. And it's fine because a large part of that is just told from the POV of Odysseus himself. But there are just bits where it could have done with at least a few more establishment shots to give us a sense of where we are at any given time. But we don't get those. And that makes Sparta just looks and feels exactly like Ithaca, for example, which looks and feels very much like Troy as well. You don't get a huge sense of grandeur from the landscape. The color grading on the whole is so desaturated and gray that it becomes kind of miserable. Which if you've ever been anywhere near the Mediterranean, it doesn't look anything like it does in the film. And then you get dumb little things as well. It's like, the first tide that came in when we were in the Trojan horse, a bunch of us drowned. Why did we drown? I guess we forgot the tides might come in. So you're Odysseus. Yeah. Come on. Like, you knew the tide was coming in. Why did you leave the horse there? That's dumb. And then, unfortunately, as well, because you can tell that there's loads of space above them in some scenes as well when you see them drowning at the bottom. You think, but there's so much space there. And then you realize, no, that's where the IMAX camera goes. So, they couldn't climb up there. And his commitment to filming, I had a bitch about this on EFAP as well. His commitment to the bit with IMAX is kind of really annoying at this point. There's a whole bunch of things in the film. The way it's cut so quickly because IMAX cameras can't sustain anything for longer than 3 minutes. The lack of these wide establishment shots, the inability to linger on anything of any great significance at any given time. And these are all technological limitations which are entirely self-imposed to serve a tiny fraction of the audience, the self-described cinephiles who think it's a mark of pride that they're somehow better because they went to see it in IMAX, all for a few extra inches on the top of the screen. It's that you're making the movie worse by doing this. Most people don't get distracted by a few extra inches of sky. They have to watch the actors' performances, which you don't care about, apparently, because so many of them are just wooden. In fact, all of them are wooden. We see it in the normal cinema, and there's nothing really else to look at. but people will go and flock to see this because it's Nolan and it's IMAX and it's so difficult to make. And then all of the press stuff now is all about how, this bit was so difficult because the camera was so big and the camera emits a noise equivalent to 100 decibels. We had to create a whole new device to make sure that the camera wasn't too loud, and we won't do any ADR so we can't hear any of the dialogue. Like, dude, you're making this job way more difficult and you're making the artistic product worse. So I'm not giving you any credit for doing this all practically, or any credit for doing this all in IMAX, because the movie would unironically have been better if you hadn't done that. It's just a pretentious thing for pretentious people, and I know I'm the one saying that with this accent, but it really fucking is.
Whoa. All right. Well, look, it's not good. But I do. The thing is, people are loving it. So are we just
hold on.
sticks in the mud or what?
Because I looked at this today, so let me get the exact figures. So I'm not gonna lie, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes. I think Rotten Tomatoes is politically compromised, and I think that the people running Rotten Tomatoes go in there and they delete anything they suspect is review bombing. They'll delete it. They have their so the 97% there, that's the verified. I think that means that you have to have an account on your phone and you have to scan the ticket or something, and that verifies that you've seen it. That's fair enough if you want to do that. I don't have a problem with that. And then you have the all audience, which is just all scores. So all audience is 92%, but the major difference is when I go to Metacritic. So that right now, the what Rotten Tomatoes shows you is an audience score of 97%. Metacritic is giving you 2 seconds. The Metacritic score is 5.1 from 1,522 user ratings. So either, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just that the chuds like Metacritic more, or it's also possible that there's been review bombing on Metacritic, but not review bombing on Rotten Tomatoes, or it's also possible that Rotten Tomatoes is deleting reviews that they consider to be review bombing, but there's been that major disparity for years between Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, and given Rotten Tomatoes' history and given how they openly, when The Woman King came out, they openly admitted that they were altering how they did things to prop up The Woman King and deleting what they felt was 99% audience score. And if you want to know how inaccurate that is, watch my review of it for my feminist film video. It's an awful movie. But yeah, I think that I do wonder what's more representative of the actual audience feeling here. Is it the Rotten Tomatoes score or the Metacritic score?
But isn't the Rotten Tomatoes figure, if anyone gives it above, is it 60%?
Sorry, yeah,
everything above 60%.
Yep.
So actually, it could be that like 97% of people thought this was a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's possible.
And it's rated as 97% because that's how Rotten Tomatoes is fucking useless in that regard.
It is.
What am I supposed to learn from this? Like most people thought it was like slightly above average as a film, maybe.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, you'll get, there's a certain amount of selection bias in the people who review it anyway, especially accredited or official reviewers. Same thing with CinemaScore, which is why CinemaScore is always like usually ahead of general audience score, because the people who give CinemaScore a score are people who went to the cinema first, the people who are keenest on doing it. And there's a whole bunch of numbers fuckery which goes on with this anyway, is that the amount of money it's earned, okay, but a hugely disproportionate share of that comes from IMAX, which is way more expensive to buy tickets for. So it could be one of Nolan's financially better performing movies at the same time as being one of his maybe least selling movies, because tickets are so much more expensive and everybody's flocking to only see it in those theaters.
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw headlines about that the number of tickets, you're right, is different. Before we get out of the Odyssey, because we've been here for an hour and it's just we'll see how the legs go next week. I'm interested to see if word of mouth kind of gets around that. I'm not saying, well, I do think it's a bad movie. No, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was bad, but even if somebody told me, yeah, it was fine, I liked it, it still puts this 95, 97%, like just this glowing, overwhelming, Tom Holland here with the 5-star reviews. Oh my God, everybody loves it. Like that's all very in question, because it's not a masterpiece. It's just not. I would accept somebody saying, look, I liked it, I had a good time, whatever, I enjoyed myself. Okay, I can accept that. But if somebody tells me this is a masterpiece, this is incredible, this is the best film in years, I'm sorry, you're just full of shit. It's just not that good.
You calling Ben Shapiro a liar, Greg?
Shockingly, for the first time, yes, 100%.
Ben Shapiro had a bad take? No,
Despot, you said you recently read. So when you said the first time you read this movie was the Emily Wilson translation.
Yes, I read the Emily because it came up on my Audible, or not? Yeah, my Audible, and I thought, all right, yeah, I'll check because I hadn't read the Odyssey at the time. And I thought I'll check that out. This was years ago. This would have been like 2017, 2018. So I listened to it. I was very unhappy with the actual reading of it, the audiobook, because it was read by a woman, and there are a lot of female parts. Honestly, the best, if you're going to do like an audiobook version of the Odyssey, the best part would be like a dramatized play where you have females for the many women roles, which Lupita Nyong'o doesn't know about because she hasn't read the Odyssey.
No.
And then you'd have men for the male roles. They did this. There's a brilliant June audiobook where they do this. That would be the ideal, but it was very poorly read. But anyway, the translation itself, obviously I was in no position to judge because I hadn't read it before. But I will say I just finished. Let me see if I can get the actual. I'm gonna get you the name of the translator because this was excellent. You can actually listen to this for free on YouTube. 2 seconds. This was the one read by Robert Fitzgerald was the translator. So yeah, you can listen to that for free on YouTube. Great, just absolute rip-roaring read, fantastic. So I read those two, and I just from it's hard to remember the precise details of the Emily Wilson translation, but from my own subjective experience, I thoroughly enjoyed the Fitzgerald translation much more than the Wilson translation.
Yeah, you said the women, that there's lots of women in it. Nolan actually cut some women out of this. If you guys help me with the kingdom that Odysseus washes up on after he leaves Calypso's island, and he runs into the king's daughter, and then the daughter tells him, go to my father's house, but speak to the queen because she's so merciful, this, that, and the other. Do you recall the name of that nation? Because I can't remember. It's Greek.
It's to be honest, that was my least favorite part of the book. There's a lot of long poetry at that part. There's no real obstacles there. It's just everybody being very nice to each other. It's perfect. Yeah. I'm sure it's perfectly beautiful poetry, but it's not. I didn't find it particularly compelling drama. I think it's the weakest part of the book, but still good. Just I did find my attention drifting at that point. It
is. I agree that it's a bit of a long bit, but it's those characters are just gone. Like that's not in the film at all. So when Lupita says like, "Oh, Homer didn't take care for the women," well, no one cut these people out. I mean, the princess rescues Odysseus. Athena sets the whole thing up, and then the princess's mother, the queen, is who she said, "Don't go see the king. Just go see the queen. She will save you. She will speak on behalf of the king." This and the other, and then Athena meets him in town to guide him to the palace.
I already know the answer to this, but I assume Nolan did not include the scene where Telemachus and Odysseus hang 12 of their female slaves for prostituting themselves to the suitors. They didn't include that.
The closest you get is the slave girl who was the traitor, the one who was sleeping with Antinous, was Penelope at one point turns to her and says, while Odysseus is killing everybody else, says, "Your place is in there with them," and then shuts the door on her. You never see her again. You don't see her die, as far as I can remember.
Because you were making that point earlier, Platoon, about how the past is a foreign country, and one of the aspects of it, which you should really examine here, is just how utterly fucking barbaric and cruel the ancient world was. And one of the ways in which this manifested was the notion that you possessed people completely. You possessed, obviously, their bodies, but also you expected them to completely conform to your often obscenely unreasonable expectations of how they should perform because they're slaves, not really people. And when Telemachus and Odysseus hang these 12 women for the crime of, wanting to have sex with perfectly attractive young men, like that's horrifying from a modern perspective. That's why it should be in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it sort of goes to the point about the translations as well, because that scene is one of those examples where it's become a little bit inflated with the telling, if that makes sense. So Robert Fagles is one of the more popular translations. I think that was one of the ones you had on screen earlier. And he's very keen in this particular section that we all understand what the moral character of these women is according to the Greeks of his day. So he says these whores, these shameless sluts, and all the rest of it. So it really, really insults them and then goes into some graphic detail about what was done to them. Emily Wilson strips out the whores, strips out the sluts, strips out some of the more graphic detail. But the interesting thing about the translation is that she's actually more accurate, because what Fagles does is he embellishes for poetic effect, because everybody wants to see a grand poem. That's what the Odyssey is. She's quite accurate in a lot of places to the Greek, but in doing so, she's demystifying all of it. That's what she said she wanted to do. Demystify, and I think to use her exact word, demasculinize the text. So though she's trying to take a very literal meaning from what the original Greek would have been, she's basically going against the entire poetic tradition that the Odyssey has come to represent over thousands of years. All the stuff that leads up to Fagles, all of the embellishments are gone. But then she also gets rid of a whole bunch of the stuff that was organic to the time period. So there's Daniel Mendelsohn did a translation where he tries to keep the it's written in dactylic hexameter, which is the Homeric meter, which you can't really do in English because the English language doesn't work that way. The stress patterns are like triplets. So he tries to sort of keep the same thing, and he tries to make sure all the artifices that were used in Homeric times remain. Lots of repetitions, lots of epithets. So he's probably, from what I've read of him, I've read quite a big chunk of him, and I've read a chunk of Wilson and a chunk of Fagles, and he's kind of like the ideal middle ground. Wilson's quite good on accuracy, but at the cost of magic and mystery. And Fagles is really good on poetry, but sometimes at the cost of accuracy. And then Mendelsohn tries to give you a version which is the synthesis of the two. It's as accurate as it can be, whilst also remaining as poetically enjoyable as it should be. And Wilson kind of, in aiming for accuracy, loses a lot of the magic, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Odyssey was bad, and the more you think about it, the worse it gets. It's quite terrible, and I do apologize to Despot for not being able to participate too much. But now we have a fun news segment. Hang on.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're gonna hear about it.
And Despot's going to give us 500 words or less about something that's pissing him off.
Yeah, that's it. Hold on, let me. I've got it actually written down in the script because I wanted to get my thoughts clear on this. And
well, you got to use the words sparingly.
Yep. All right, so here we go. This is my. This is just titled Despot's rant. Okay, here we go. So this rant is titled "Fuck GTA 6." All right. Grand Theft Auto 6 is finished. Rockstar then slice a few random side missions out of that game, call the remaining 98% the standard edition, and assert that the actual game, the full finished game, is really the ultimate edition, which you can purchase for only an extra $20. Let's have a look at what else you can expect from the $100 ultimate edition. 95 grotty cheetah, Hawk and Little Morgan revolvers, personalized weapon variants, Ganada retro build, Sarah's unisex salon, stock 305 clothing store, Electric Fang tattoo parlor, One-Eyed Willie's mod shop, Good Time Gear, PTT Youngin Dollar compound. To translate that from bullshit, a handful of random ass cars and cosmetics. Stuff that Rockstar could easily have put in the standard edition, but chose not to. Not that it matters, because who gives a fuck about One-Eyed Willie's mod shop? I don't care about exclusive pimped out rides, tattoos that I will never look at, or access to the game's 312th set of clothes. I care about good characters that I can emotionally invest in, a good story that I want to play through, excellent gameplay, great locations that have real vibe and personality, and most importantly, fun. Walking into Sarah's unisex salon to have my nails trimmed isn't fun. Driving recklessly around North Point Mall, running over random shoppers is fun. And I won't be able to do that in GTA 6 because, like GTA 5, the game will have very few interior locations. Rockstar's emphasis will be on a huge, boring open world, vehicles, traversal, and shoving gamers into the subscription-based GTA Plus. Well then, what should Rockstar put in their Ultimate Edition, I hear you ask? There shouldn't be an Ultimate Edition of this game, or any game. Make the fucking game, release it in digital and physical formats, pick one price tag and sell it. Multiple versions of the same game at different price tags is bullshit. locking some kid out of game content that is already finished because that kid only paid $80 is bullshit. Refusing to provide the option of physical media to gamers so that the company can save pennies is bullshit. This game will normalize digital-only releases. The industry will see GTA 6 sell 4 trillion copies without a physical release and will imitate that release model. GTA 5 was fucking mediocre. Good gameplay, crap characters, crap story. When GTA 6 comes out and is disappointing, the long overdue backlash against GTA 5 will finally come. Trevor is amusing, but ultimately a bit of a one-note crazy guy. Michael is dull as dog water, and Franklin is a random-ass ghetto thug. The bizarre, colorful side characters from previous games are nowhere to be seen in GTA 5. GTA 6 will come with a giant one-day patch that eats up a massive amount of hard drive space, in addition to the already massive rumored file size of 250 gigabytes. GTA 6 will contain none of the spicy humor, lad banter, and edgy jokes that are all over GTA games, even 5. The game will be sterile, cowardly, carefully combed through by HR Karens to remove any trace of offense to protected groups. I will never buy GTA 6 on principle. I'm not paying $80 for an unfinished version of a game. That is cuckoldry. I'm sure as shite not paying $100 for the ultimate edition of the game, only for the start screen to nag me to join the subscription multiplayer every time I boot the fucking game up. Gamers need to reject cunt behavior from game studios that is exemplified by GTA 6. Fuck GTA 6.
Ah, God, that felt good. That felt good just to be near it. Somebody wants that to be a recurring segment, and it will be. We were going to call that the 500K catharsis. I don't know. We'll come up with a name, but it's going to be 500 words or less. Just something to get off his chest. Before we move on, let's get some super chats. Right before the show, Xi Jinping, real. That's the real one right there. $10 paying to begin the stream. Thank you so much. And it worked. Another $10. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Tiny Conspiracy for $5. If breaking the law of Zeus is so important, why does the story go out of its way to make the audience believe gods are just a fever dream? Excellent question. It is a Greek mythology movie with no gods. It's incredible. Dreadnought Logan said for $10, I don't think most people care about directors these days. You'll be hard pressed to find someone who cares about the movie or above the movie. I mean, when I heard his name, I first thought about Christopher Robin. I don't know. I do think Nolan's name carries a little bit of a little prestige. You know, he's had a lot of good movies. I do think that when people hear, oh, it's a Christopher Nolan movie, I think they pay a little more attention than.
Yeah, I mean, directors can sell. I'd say 2 directors that come to mind are Denis Villeneuve, again, because he's a big IMAX director. Yeah. I also think Greta Gerwig, the Barbie director, I think her next movie has the capacity to be very big just based on her name once people sort of get reminded, the director of Barbie.
Is now doing Narnia, which might be her next film.
That could be big. And of course, because she's a female director and Hollywood have been chasing, the great female directors for years now. Mostly, it's been disastrous. Mostly, they've been elevating people who aren't qualified for big projects to those big projects. But Greta Gerwig's actually an exception. Because she's technically proficient. She's not a good writer, but she can actually handle a large-scale production. So I think her next project, that you'll see that advertised everywhere. There'll be a huge marketing campaign behind that based on her name.
Yeah. Well, and Nolan is probably the single biggest exception. I'm sure I read somewhere recently that Christopher Nolan, they did try and poll it, I think. I can't remember the exact figures, but Christopher Nolan had more pull for an audience than any single actor in this film. So it's not just audience recognition and the prestige, to use a pun, that Nolan has with the audience. It's also the prestige he has with actors. There's a reason he can get all of these very, very big, famous people who currently lead their own blockbusters to star in his movie while keeping the budget at under $250 million. That's because Nolan's name carries a huge amount of weight. I don't really think it's deserved, but it does objectively, and I can't deny that.
Yeah. bass player 2011 iffy for $5. The version of the Odyssey that Nolan adapted, quote, is the feminist slop version written by Emily Wilson, also a Greek myth with no gods. What's the point? Yeah, it is quite
adopted at all.
Quite
no, he didn't. That's interesting. I mean, I'll hear many things said against Emily Wilson, but all of the bad decisions in this movie are Christopher Nolan story decisions. Then the only thing you can really say of Emily Wilson is that maybe she inspired some of the use of modern language. That's it. But that, despite taking her out of the film at several points, is nowhere near at the top of my list of problems with this film. It's everything that Nolan wrote, and he is the sole credited screenwriter, so he is safe to blame for this movie.
Yeah. Miku 4X bot, $2. Scott Lives Matter. I think that's Travis Scott. That's the Bard. The Bard literally does slam poetry. And by slam poetry, I mean he slams his staff on the table and spouts out random lines about, the man of mystery or the man of whatever problems. It's horrendous. It's such a bizarre opening to the movie of him just slamming the table and just... Listen to my story about the man. Pa, pa, pa. The man of twists and turns. Like,
he sounds exactly like that as well. It's a very good impression. It's like you're slammed over the head with how aggressively American it is in the first line of dialogue. And then you remember Christopher Nolan's bullshit excuse for having a rapper in the film. He's like, ancient Greek poetry was like an oral tradition. And I think that modern day rappers are like the inheritors of that oral tradition.
Yeah.
I don't remember when Kanye West wrote something of the equivalent of the Aeneid, but okay, fine. We can run with that assumption. I still don't think Travis Scott belongs in an Odyssey movie, but no, that's me.
Nolan was just trying to be too clever. In everything he did, he just was trying to be super clever. And that's just one of many examples. And it's just tell the story. Just tell the story everybody wants. Joy Bag of Donuts for $2. Hey, Ploots, the supper cat infection spreads.
You want to be careful about catching that. You'll be referring to all super chats as supper cats just without even thinking about it. If that catches on, I
think I might do it just for fun, like a Super Troopers thing. I saw my movie at the Marcus Theaters because I'm in the Midwest. And they're actually quite nice. Marcus Theaters are, and the CEO Greg Marcus always does a little thing in the beginning, and he's been promoting Super Troopers 3 recently, and I gotta tell you, that looks like shit. It is sad. It is very sad to see the actors from Super Troopers keep trying to talk about drinking syrup and talk about a liter of cola, and these guys look terrible. It's embarrassing to watch people ride their own coattails from 25 years ago. It's rough. DSP Historical Society for $5 just chimed in with reflection of myself. Probably something in the Odyssey there. The Aussie Brit for $10 Australian. Is that what that is? $10. Hail yes. Panel. Who do you think would be a better option to film both the Iliad and the Odyssey? Robert Eggers, Mel Gibson, or Denis Villeneuve? Also, Despot, why was the current iPhone retired?
To answer the first question, I would say probably Mel Gibson. Denis Villeneuve is brilliant with visuals, but he would adopt the Odyssey very imperfectly. Mm-hmm. You've seen this with Dune, but I certainly think Denis Villeneuve would probably do a better job than Nolan. Robert Eggers, isn't he more of a horror director? Robert Eggers.
That name did not ring a bell. That's Nosferatu most recently, The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman.
To be honest, I think The Northman is very overrated. I watched it and I quite liked it. It's a decent watch, but it's certainly not something I would go back to. It's got some nice visuals, some nice ideas. I'm sure it's very thematically rich, but I don't like Matheme's criticism generally. Matheme's is not a good excuse for saying a movie is brilliant. It actually has to be entertaining. I was mostly just bored with The Northman. It's certainly Mel Gibson, just based on Apocalypto and his vast experience. He would be the definite choice for an adoption of either of those.
Yeah, I could agree. Villeneuve it's the Dune ones are disappointing. I really feel like that book should have been its own trilogy. A lot of the themes on that one are sadly missing. Do you want to retell the iPhone story? You've already answered this question.
She's just been in too many videos. I think it's okay to move on and do other things.
Yeah, got a new bits. Lego Man 849598 8498. There it is. $5 pounds for a super sticker, and then another 10 pounds for a super sticker. Very nice. And Grasshopper gave away 5 Despot Antrim memberships.
Thank you very much, Grasshopper.
And then that's a random name. $5 Canadian. You say Lupita didn't read the Odyssey, assuming she can read. I know she didn't. She admitted that. And then putting Chewy Charmander, another $5 Canadian. Putting the words Steiner and numbers in the Black Woman World War II video was prophetic to the recent COD re-releases, the Call of Duty re-releases. Is this about your stuff, the World War II video?
Yeah. Steiner's attack. Steiner's attack will fix everything. The famous line from Downfall, where Berlin's about to fall, and Hitler says, "It's all right. Steiner's attack will fix everything." I just did a little bit where I said, Steiner's attack won't happen because they've been seduced by the twerking of the black women. I don't know anything about this game he's referring to, but I'm sure I would not be surprised if a modern AAA World War II game had black women twerking. Literally, I would not be surprised.
No, would not surprise me at all. And at this point, like Battlefield, Call of Duty, they're trying anything to get the audience to stick around. And then Lego Man using his monthly membership shout out. I don't know if you members on everybody's channel, I don't know if you guys know that, like, your membership allows you to do like a highlighted, I think, comment once a month, I think, something to that effect. I'm not sure. I got to look into how that works, but you should look into it. How about that? But Lego Man said Nolan and Gunn both getting their wives involved in filmmaking and then making shit movies. All right. So now we're going to get Despot really involved to make up for lost time. We have a little, and I want you audience, you guys, we're going to need you in here. We're going to do a little, oh, hang on. I have to, there we go. Got to get rid of the slideshow. So we're going to do a little Christopher Nolan best and worst. And the way this is going to work is we're going to go both ways. Heyo. And we're going to go best first, and then all the loser categories, we'll just only take the ones that lost, the bottom 6, and then we'll go off of we'll go for worst as well. And he's got 13 movies, so a couple of them got a bye week. Pause again. And sorry, a lot of bye jokes here. There are a few of these that I have not seen, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. And Despot, you're going to be leading this one because you've seen all of them, right? At this point, because you're working on that video.
Yeah.
So, chat, I want you guys to hop in on this one as well. But first up, we have Following, which is his very first movie. I have not seen that one. And then The Dark Knight Rises going up against that. And to remind everybody, The Dark Knight Rises was the one with Bane, where bombs were floating around the city and
all of the police run into the underground for no particular reason. So I haven't seen Following, but it's got to be pretty bad to be worse than The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, The Dark Knight Rises. For a while, I thought The Dark Knight Rises was Nolan's trashterpiece, and I watched it recently for the video I'm working on, and it's just not, because a trashterpiece kind of has to not offend you. It has to be entertainingly bad without being disgusting. Madam Web is the classic example, and The Dark Knight Rises is just disgustingly bad. It's not even the plot holes for me. It's how the movie just ravages the characters. So Alfred, out of fucking nowhere, just gives up on Bruce. Bruce is just turned into a moronic simp. He's so dumb in this movie. Lucius Fox, who is very rigorous and does his homework in the previous movies, he's just a complete fucking moron here. Just he puts Marion Al Ghul in charge of the energy testicle without doing any vetting on her. It's any character you can think of. This movie fucking trashes. Gordon is all of a sudden a complete moron. He orders a full blob attack into the sewers with no reconnaissance and not even any idea of what they're attacking. Oh, it's fucking terrible.
It's awful. I mean, I've not seen it for years, but it's a really good example movie though of how like an okay theme does not survive terrible like every other aspect being terrible. Because you can look at like Dark Knight Rises and even The Dark Knight and say, well, the theme is kind of, it's anti sort of lefty tyranny anarchy stuff, right? Because it's actually showing you that anarchy leads to despotism, to borrow a name. This is bad. So it's kind of, you could say it's kind of a conservatively themed movie, which is fine, but it's also dog shit in every conceivable way. And so it's a terrible film. It doesn't matter if the theme is good, if the film is shit.
Well,
Yeah,
and
it does have redeeming aspects. Tom Hardy, still a brilliant performance. Following, the problem with Following's also a terrible film. Any Nolan stan will assure you that Following is, like some sort of underrated masterpiece debut. Following's terrible. Basically, Following is about, so it's his first movie. It was made on a micro budget. It was made for like $8,000. Basically, it's a no budget movie. And for a no budget movie, it looks decent. It's quite a decent looking movie, but it is filled with plot holes. The third act dumps a bunch of twists into the story, which once you think about them, it's kind of okay on first viewing, but once you think about it, it just falls to pieces. The movie is about a writer who stalks random people, and he is doing this because he believes this is research for his future literary works, his great literary works to come. He wants to learn about people's lives, so he stalks them, and he gets a real taste for it. And he starts stalking a house robber, and the house robber confronts him, and then they start robbing houses together, and then they get involved with a kind of femme fatale type character. And then a giant pile of money appears because that's a student film cliche. You have to have your pile of money somewhere. Fundamentally, the problem with it's got a very convoluted plot. I'm not going to explain it all, but the problem with Following, it has like a double twist ending where the robber tries to frame the stalker for murder. It's a complete mess. And yeah, fundamentally watching Following, you realize that Nolan started out as a Quentin Tarantino wannabe, because Following does non-linear structure. And I think the main reason Nolan was into that at the time is because Quentin Tarantino had done it in Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, which had made it very, very fashionable among sort of wannabe auteur directors, which Nolan was at the time. And it's got that sort of snappy back and forth dialogue. It even has like specific scenes which you can see are copying Pulp Fiction in Following. Specifically, there's a coffee shop scene where Samuel L. Jackson confronts the robber. Very, very similar thing in Following. So watching Following, you would think, yeah, this guy Nolan is he's just a Tarantino wannabe. So that was a pretty pathetic debut. Even though it's micro budget, it's still shite. But the real thing I would say, which pushes it over the line here, is that it's only an hour and 8 minutes long, whereas The Dark Knight Rises is almost 3 hours of sheer fucking misery and suffering. So it's got to be Following for me. The Dark Knight Rises is appalling.
Oh man, yeah. Well, you know what's funny about The Dark Knight Rises and the themes. Now that the Odyssey has come out, I really don't think The Dark Knight Rises is like a conservative thing. I think Nolan just thinks human beings are shit, and I thought the same thing. I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, oh wow, this is like surprisingly based. Now, having watched the Odyssey, I think, oh wait, maybe and Interstellar, maybe Nolan just thinks people are fucking terrible. And I think that's really what he believes. And so it just because the city goes into anarchy and you think, haha, yeah, suck it, socialists. Like, I don't think that's really what he thought. I think he was going for people suck if they're not controlled. All right, so we're going to give it to Following on that one. Dark Knight Rises will go toward the worst of awards. Next up, Interstellar and Insomnia. Now, Despot, we had a minor disagreement on this because I wasn't going to put Insomnia in because Nolan did not write this, but Despot, you said that this has got to go in because he approved it. And what's the story there?
This has some interesting trivia behind it. So this was based on a Norwegian movie. It's a Norwegian movie released, I think, in 1995 or 97, something like that, starring Stellan Skarsgård. And Nolan saw it and immediately wanted to do an English version of it. So he wrote a script and handed the script into Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers rejected it, even after Memento came out and was, quite successful. They still rejected Nolan's script. They instead went with a script by a screenwriter named Hilary Zeitz. Now, this Zeitz woman had never had anything released, no TV, no movies. She had made one movie. I can't remember the name of it. Fuck, hold on. 2 seconds, because this is interesting. She made a movie called Early Bird Special. Early Bird Special was filmed and finished in 2001. and it has still not been released. Immediately after production wrapped on Early Bird Special, the movie entered some sort of legal limbo, legal arbitration because of a rights dispute. And to this day, nobody has seen it. So it's just been sitting on a shelf somewhere in a Warner Brothers warehouse for 25 years. But despite the fact that this woman had never had anything released, Warner Brothers greenlit her script for Insomnia. I'm guessing this was probably just standard Hollywood nepotism. Maybe she was sucking the right cock. Who knows? Something like that. But Nolan saw the script and he quite liked it and he decided to film it. And it is fucking awful. Insomnia is a terrible film. It's dated for its time, so it's made very much in the style of a 90s thriller. It is sort of that, it's part of that post-Silence of the Lambs 90s thriller wave. And it's fucking terrible. It's absolutely awful. It's filled with plot holes. The characters are all morons. A lot of the plot relies on stupid character decision making. It's one of those movies where in order for the plot to happen, characters have to make insanely stupid decisions. It is insanely contrived. For example, Hilary Swank is in this, and she catches the killer because the killer brings her into his house because he promised her some letters from the murder victim, because he went to the police and said, hey, by the way, the murder victim, she wrote me some letters, but I totally didn't kill her, bro. So the police believe him, bro. And Hilary Swank goes to his house to find these letters. And while looking for the letters, he accidentally pulls open his drawer where the murder victim's dress has been stored, and Hilary Swank sees this.
Oops.
Oh, it's fucking, it is awful.
Hate when that happens.
Al Pacino plays a kind of slightly malware version of the character he played in Heat. Robin Williams just doesn't have much to work with here. He's okay in it. The music is fucking terrible. It's sort of secondhand Silence of the Lambs. It doesn't even look good. Like, a lot of the editing is clunky. Some of the exterior establishing shots are nice because it was filmed on location in Alaska. That's literally all I can say about it that's good. Insomnia is fucking awful. This is probably Nolan's worst movie, but I should say Nolan thinks Insomnia is his most underrated movie. There are interviews in which he states this, that's its most underrated movie, and he liked the script as soon as he saw it. And he also said Insomnia is very much in line with the vision that I had for the movie in my own script. So it's his movie, and it's fucking awful.
So you're gonna go with Interstellar, because I haven't seen Insomnia, but I did see Interstellar, which I liked a lot.
Platoon,
maybe because I'm suddenly an Andy Weir fan after Hail Mary, and I want to read all his shit now. But
I only saw Interstellar the one time when it first came out. I remember not liking it. I don't remember many of the reasons besides it vaguely being 2001 but worse, and that he abandons his son and forgets he exists. But I know there's a whole bunch more stuff, and I keep being told if I rewatch it, I'm going to absolutely hate it. So one day I might, but I can't give any justifications as to why right now. So I'd have to probably recuse myself on Interstellar.
It's a tough one.
Reddit will assure you that Interstellar is a masterpiece.
Well, then it's definitely shit then, in that case. I'm not going to fucking leave Reddit.
You could argue that it's shit. Aspects of it, there are some aspects of it that are dreadful. The world building is very poor because, for example, you have this blight that is destroying all the crops, and NASA is making this immense effort to try to enact a planetary evacuation plan. The plan is essentially to transport all of humanity through a wormhole to another galaxy where they might be able to possibly live on another planet, maybe, bro. It's the dumbest shit. It's an appalling premise, really, when you think about it. But where's the Manhattan Project to destroy blight? Like, there would be a gigantic Manhattan Project type effort to get rid of blight, and it's not hard. Like, blight is a single organism that thrives on nitrogen. Just bring all the best minds in the world together and figure out how to kill this fucking thing. There's other problems as well, like the missions, the Lazarus missions they send through the wormhole don't make any sense. First of all, how did they know there were planets on the other side of the wormhole to send astronauts to, unless they sent probes there? And if they did send probes there, the probes would have brought back extensive information about all of these planets. For example, the probes could have told NASA immediately that the water world was not inhabitable. When Cooper and his crew go through the wormhole, they make the appallingly stupid decision to go to a time-dilated planet first. So if you have some engine trouble or a rough landing, and it takes you a half a day to fix your ship, which is perfectly normal. You know, that's to be expected almost. Well, 100 years just passed on Earth and humanity are extinct. Sucks to be you. That doesn't make any sense. If you're in the solar system, the first port of call is the non-time dilated planet with Matt Damon on it, but they don't do that because the plot needs them to go to the water world. So those are all major problems. It does have some brilliant stuff as well, though. The music's excellent. Acting is really good. Anne Hathaway's a bit odd, but I think Anne Hathaway kind of works because her father sort of shoved her into the mission so that his own lineage would continue. This is part of his hypocrisy as a character and as a villain. So the fact that she feels out of place kind of works. I don't know if that was deliberate. I suspect it probably was deliberate on the part of Nolan. And Matt Damon's excellent in it as Dr. Mann, and Dr. Mann is the sort of not very subtle metaphor for mankind. And his whole thing is that one of the themes of the movie is it's evolutionary biology as a practical survival mechanism versus love as a practical survival mechanism. It's kind of a heady theme, but the perspective that love is actually biologically designed to encourage survival. That's Anne Hathaway's character. You know, she proposes that. And the idea that no, all actions, even those that come off as loving, you know, loving to one's family, this is all driven by evolutionary biology. And this is the perspective of Dr. Mann. And indeed, it's the perspective of Nolan, I think, ultimately in the movie. It's actually quite an interesting question when it comes down to it, as pretentious as it is. But yeah, there's some very, very good stuff here, but it's a massively overrated movie because people will look at things they really love about the movie, like the relationship between Murph and Cooper, you know, Cooper and his daughter, and they'll just completely ignore stuff that is totally shite, like the horrible character decision making, the poor world building, the bad premise, the plot holes. So it's a mixture of really good and really awful. And I think the movie, it's quite entertaining. It's very watchable, and it lands somewhere in the middle for me. I think of it as kind of a 7 out of 10 type movie. But if you're a very discriminating viewer and you really need your plots to make sense and you like to have your tight world building, you will not like Interstellar.
Yeah, I'm. So are you going with Interstellar on this one?
Interstellar is definitely the better movie. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Insomnia is an appalling movie.
I'm interested to read Interstellar. After reading Hail Mary, I want to see what that's about. You know, what Andy Weir clearly loves time dilation and nitrogen. Man fucking loves nitrogen. It's a very, very strange theme for that guy, but I want to read the rest of his stuff and kind of see how. I get the feeling that Tars and Case are a lot cooler in the book. Really, really fun characters. But that one, Interstellar, is interesting because it sort of continues that theme of Christopher Nolan thinking that people just suck. Dr. Mann is selfish and only wants to look out for himself. And I really am getting the feeling that Nolan he thinks people are shitty. Just in general. He just thinks they're terrible. Which is, it's a very postmodern kind of attitude. And it fits with his like, I don't tell stories in the same, a linear fashion. And I'm very, who knows who's right and who's wrong. It's all very postmodern and it can be cool, but there are parts of it that you're just like, God, I kind of hate you sometimes. Dunkirk and The Prestige. And for this one, I'm going to attempt to,
I'll be back in a minute, Greg. I'm going to get some water.
Yeah. I'm going to see if... there we go. Looks like... Oh, you got to type 1 or 2 in chat. 1 for Dunkirk, 2 for Prestige. StreamYard has a polling feature, and I'm going to try to see if it works. Platoon, have you seen either of these? Because I have not seen Dunkirk, and I haven't seen The Prestige in a couple of years. I liked it, but I can't remember a lot of the details, and I wasn't watching it through like a critical kind of lens. I was just like, ooh, Scarlett Johansson is hot, and this movie is cool.
I have seen Dunkirk. Criminally, I have not seen The Prestige, though judging by chat, it's a bit of a sweep, this one. But Dunkirk, I have seen twice, maybe, I think. Did I watch it again? I think I've seen it twice since it came out. Serviceable, well shot, notable lack of blood, struggles with scale in the way that, unfortunately, the version in the 50s just doesn't. It's no competition. The 50s version is incredible for not just of its time, but it's still a brilliant movie now. And this version it's a Nolan film. It's just a sterile version of something that used to be good. It's perfectly competent. I don't feel for any of the characters. I don't remember many of their names. It also begins, the first time I really noticed him casting for effect, I think, was Dunkirk, because you have people like Harry Styles appearing as soldiers, which makes a degree of sense because it has the formula of an old propagandistic war film. You choose very attractive young men to portray your soldiers because you have to sort of, feel for the flower of youth as it's being sacrificed. Does some interesting stuff with time, and like some of the least egregious stuff with time in a Nolan movie. I quite liked the fact that you don't necessarily know when Tom Hardy's part of the story sets in, and of course the reveal is that it doesn't belong where you think it belongs. And I think that works because it doesn't rest on it too much in the way that he's not trying to be too clever structurally with the plot, in a way that certain other of his movies really do. So you don't sort of lose too much of the thrust of the story for him trying to be too clever. That being said, I don't rate it all that highly. I think it's just, if it's on, I might watch it. I'm never going to go looking for it. If I go looking for a Dunkirk version, it'll be 50s.
All right. I mean, chat is pretty... this is pretty... I'm not a huge war movie fan, so I'm just going to assume I'm not going to like Dunkirk as much. I just don't love them always. And the Prestige was cool as hell.
The 50s version works really well because you get so much of the character, not only of the soldiers, but of the different classes of England all coming together. You have the people coming in the small boats, back when small boats went to France as opposed to from France. But you get the different classes of people and the humor and the interplay and the way the soldiers actually dealt with the situation they were in. There's just like very little bits in the 50s version where, once again, like they're under permanent bombardment. There's hundreds of thousands of people on the beach, and someone's slowly losing his mind and he's saying, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. And in the background, you hear some old sort of worn down soldier just say, well, you might bloody well have to. So none of that is in the Nolan film, but that is kind of integral to what makes Dunkirk, the original Dunkirk, work so well, is that this is actually real people. Many of the actors and extras had been on those beaches themselves. They knew what it was like, and that shines through in the film in a way that Nolan picking the occasional pretty boy musician is never going to match.
Yeah, Dunkirk, I mean, Platoon's got it right. It's a decent movie, but I find it very frustrating because to me it's pop history. I fucking hate pop history. Like, the most mythologized event in human history is World War II, and there's a lot of pop history about it. One example is that Winston Churchill was a great war leader. He was an inspiring figure, certainly, but he was actually quite a bad war leader when you look at his resume and the various decisions that he made. I'll not go into it too much, but for example, he stripped the British forces of North Africa, who were in the middle of winning a great victory, so that he could send a lot of troops to Greece to basically get captured by the Germans. And then the greater fuck up was the loss of Crete. That was a disaster. And that was all Churchill. And a lot of North African soldiers hated Churchill for his massive interference in which up to that point had been a very successful operation, because he wanted to play politics in Greece. So there's the mythology of Churchill is one of the aspects of pop history that I can't fucking stand about World War II. Dunkirk is more pop history to me. It takes an event in which was a disaster shared between the French and the British. I mean, 16,000 French soldiers died at the perimeter. Those are massive casualties. And the French just aren't even in this. Like, watching this movie, you would swear that this was a solely British evacuation. The French contributed 50 ships to this. They lost 3 destroyers during the evacuation. 3 French destroyers were sunk during the evacuation. And the French are barely in this. I think they appear in 2 scenes very, very briefly. And the impression one gets watching it is that this was a fully British affair, and the French were somewhere in the back doing, whatever. And there's other mistakes he makes. He gives the wrong impression, like Dunkirk. He wanted to film on location, so he went to the real village of Dunkirk. The problem is that's a modern French town, right? In reality, by the time the evacuation had started, Dunkirk had been destroyed. Like 90% of the town was destroyed, and there would have been fucking bodies everywhere. Like the opening scene, it has these lads walking through this holiday resort, basically reading these flyers. We surround you, and it looks ridiculous. Like they should be walking through a ruin, fucking filled with dead bodies. And then they should be walking onto a beach, absolutely buzzing with activity. Instead, they walk through a holiday resort and look at a beach with lines of a couple of hundred soldiers standing eerily staring at the ocean. It's weird. This was an example where Nolan's absolute determination not to use CGI and to film on location really hurts the movie. But yeah, the Prestige is amazing, but we'll get onto that later.
All right. So hang on, let me hide that. Our next one up. So the Odyssey is going to get a bye week on this one just because it's new. Next up, I think this might be the tough one here because The Dark Knight is, the Nolan Batman movies did not age well. People loved them. I loved them at the time, and I rewatched them, and I don't hate them now. I don't want to go that far, but maybe it's because I was younger. I don't know, but I did not enjoy them as much on a rewatch. And then going up against Tenet, which doesn't make any sense. Super cool movie, very cool spectacle, lots of fun. But then when you stop and think about it at all, it doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
I gave up on Tenet, so it's that bad. I think The Dark Knight has a whole bunch of flaws. I haven't rewatched that in a long time, and I kind of am interested in doing that because I suspect there were more problems. I know lots of people have more problems with it, and it was carried to a great degree by certain performances. But I think it's got to be Tenet. Tenet's just insufferable.
Wait, so Tenet is the better one?
No, Dark Knight is the better one. I gave up on Tenet.
Better one for you, chat. Number 1 is Dark Knight. Number 2 is Tenet. You just got to type that in chat. Number 1 or number 2. Number 1, Dark Knight. Number 2, Tenet. This one I think is gonna be tough. For me, so the Dark Knight is the one with the Joker. So I because of the naming convention, I get those mixed up sometimes, and I do think that's the best of the trilogy in some regards. There were also Despot has a really good video about the lunacy of Joker's plan in the beginning with the school bus and the guys killing each other off, which took off when the last Batman movie came out, right? Didn't that get like a huge jump?
It got like 5 views for 2 years, and then it got like 1.8 million very quickly because Joker 2 came out, and it somehow got into the algorithm. That was that brought me into direct conflict with the Nolan stans. One of their favorite arguments was that none of this matters because it characterizes the Joker. He's got this magical ability to command people and events, which is essentially another way of saying that the Joker's superpower is that the plot does what he wants it to do.
Yeah. Tenet was fun. I enjoyed it, but it's just one of those movies that, like, I mean, not to, I guess, well, it's a couple years old. Fuck it if you don't want it spoiled. But toward the end, when he's like, call this phone if you're in trouble, whatever, and I'll come rescue you. The mechanics of it, I mean, any kind of time travel mechanics, they never really make sense. But some are more egregious than others. And the movie goes out of its way to describe how they can travel backward through time. And they need this machine, and it has to exist during the time they're going back, and they have to then ride some kind of transport back in time and then have breathing air or whatever. He really tries to go into detail about how this time travel is going to work, which is I think a very big mistake. And in the end of the movie, he's just like, fuck it. He just travels back in time to whenever she calls. Who cares? Whatever. It just is what it is. It doesn't matter. Or I guess he leaves himself a note. I don't know. It just wasn't. It didn't hold up.
I actually finished rewatching it yesterday or the day before, and I've seen it twice now. It's fucking dreadful. Like, I'm sorry, man. It just is. But the most pretentious thing I ever heard about a movie was about Tenet. Someone wrote that Tenet is a masterpiece. You just need to watch it 5 times to understand. So yeah, Tenet is awful. It's just, I don't give a fuck if the time mechanics work or not. They could work perfectly well, and I still wouldn't care because the characters are awful. The plot is not particularly compelling. Even the action scenes don't look good. There's this big action set piece at the end, and yes, it's kind of cool to have that gimmick whereby you have one aspect of the battle is people, one group is moving forward in time, another group is inverted, which means they're moving backwards in time. And the ordnance, some of the ordnance are normal ordnance and some of them are inverted, so it looks kind of cool that way. But because the movie is so confusing and the plot is such a mess, you have only a very vague idea of who they're even fighting here. And in fact, I don't think you ever actually see their enemy. So it's basically it just looks like a kind of blob, like a video game blob running around a map, just a random ass video game multiplayer map, and lots of shit is blowing up. And it's terrible. The action scenes in this don't look good. The fight choreography is just, I think it relies too much on the time inversion mechanic, because other than that, they don't look good. Like, this is not good fight choreography. It's not a particularly good looking movie even. The acting isn't very good. It's just, I mean, apart from Kenneth Branagh, but it's an awful movie. I forget about the time. I mean, you can go into the plot problems or the problems with the time mechanics, but it's just dreadful. It's his most pretentious movie, and I'm sure there are many Nolan stans online who will assure you that it's the greatest thing made this century. You just don't get it, because they're just so much more enlightened than you, and they can see things in this movie that you can't see. This, I mean, it's pornography for Nolan stans. Tenet
is, for me, it's where Nolan becomes his most. He tries to be too clever, and that's the really is my biggest issue with the Odyssey, and that's my issue with this one, is he's just trying to out clever the audience, and it goes too far. And maybe if you watch it a second or third time, maybe it would make more sense. It's possible. My issue with it is, and I think this is where he just really went wrong, is I don't care. I don't care to watch it again. Like, there's nothing in it that sparks my interest to think, wow, I'm interested to find out what that was about, or, oh, what did I miss something? Like, I just don't give a shit. Whereas, like, with Inception, okay, there are maybe hints about, is Cobb dreaming or is he not, or whatever. We're about to get to Inception, but like, that movie was interesting, and I cared about the characters, and so I wanted to watch it again. I wanted to find those details. That is what makes you. With Tenet, I just didn't give a shit about anybody, so I didn't bother watching it a second time because I just didn't care. It was a fun spectacle. I disagree. I thought it was kind of fun looking. I thought the fight scenes were interesting. Like, as a spectacle, it was cool. But then as soon as I turned it off, I was like, well, I'm kind of confused, and I just don't really care to even think about whether, like with Inception, I cared to think. This one, I didn't care to think. And the audience agreed. There was like 90. Hang on, let me get that back up. 91-9. It's actually higher than I thought it was going to be. All right, moving on. We got Memento getting a bye week. I picked these at random. Just there it is. This one's probably not going to be very close. I'm not going to poll everybody. I think we know where this one's going to go, but Despot, Platoon, you guys got thoughts on why Oppenheimer wins?
I've still disgracefully not seen Oppenheimer. I never had time at the time, and it didn't really stand out as something as I know the history, and I wasn't hugely interested, so I can't comment on that. I do think Batman Begins is probably the most solid of his Batman trilogy, but not having seen the thing to compare it to, I can't compare it.
Batman Begins. Go ahead, Greg.
No, it's just Batman Begins. Like, we could actually, it would be kind of fun to figure out which of the Batman trilogy is the most solid. My problem with Batman Begins, and this again, it's another reason where I knew what the Odyssey was going to be, and it's just crazy to look at these, and you can really see that it is interesting to watch these all and really get to know this guy, like his directing style. He does have a very distinct style, and he has very distinct themes that he likes. He loves to make things as realistic as he possibly can, which I think is what drug Batman Begins down, because we wanted to retell the origin story of Batman and how he learned his fighting style and how he invented these things, rather than just saying he's got a kick-ass belt and cool gadgets and let's just get into the fucking action. We spend an hour of this movie with him trekking through the Himalayas and get this drug, and it's about fear. And then the Scarecrow, which is about fear, and also him falling down the well, which is about fear. And it just, God, it drags because Nolan is so interested in detailing out the minutia of how a thing might really work. I think that's what drug Interstellar down. It's not important to the story. We just need to say it works and move on to what's really important.
Yeah, I mean, Batman Begins, I do think it's the best of the Batman trilogy. It has problems. It has major problems. There's big plot holes in the third act, with the notion that they're going to vaporize all the water after spending weeks poisoning it. which doesn't make any sense because water vaporizes every time you take a shower. People would have been going crazy for weeks. But look, that aside, whatever. It's fucking Batman. Maybe I will not get too caught up in the plot hole. The big other issues. The big other issues are, I mean, I think he uses non-linearity very well. He uses it sparingly in the beginning to make the child Bruce more endurable because childhood sequences are generally quite boring. So I think that works really well. I generally quite like it. I think it's a good movie. Not great. I think I would give it about an 8 out of 10, but definitely the best of the trilogy and not as good as Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer's excellent. I've seen it twice. Although I haven't rewatched it for my current review, so I'll hold off on giving specifics about it. But yeah, Batman Begins, it's a lot of fun. It's a really good, fun movie. And the other reason I like it is that it brought the Batman franchise back after the fucking horror of the Joel Schumacher movies. So it gets points for that, I think.
Hang on a second. There we go. We'll try this. Chat's mad at me for skipping them out. You know, that's not right. You guys are here.
And now they're going
we're
to
here
wreak
for
their
you.
vengeance. They're going to swap them round. Batman is going to be
now
Oppenheimer.
now Batman's going to win just because. Number 1 for Batman, number 2 for Oppenheimer. Get those votes in real quick.
I know that Oppenheimer's not. I suspect it's not very popular. A lot of people hate it. They think it's overrated. All that shit. So it's definitely going to be Batman.
Oh wait, no, they're duking it out. They're duking it out now.
Oppenheimer has no chance. You really think that Oppenheimer could beat Batman in a fight, Greg? He was a fucking physicist, all right?
No. I mean, Batman beat a nuclear bomb in Dark Knight Rises.
Exactly.
Okay?
Batman bailed out of his bat ship or bat fucking airplane or whatever that thing was, and he swam away from a nuclear blast in only 15 seconds. That's how little Oppenheimer's shit affects Batman, all right?
Oh man. Well, I guess the audience has spoken. I gotta give it to Batman.
I love democracy.
Batman fucking mogs Oppenheimer, bro.
Oh goodness. All right, so here's our Inception. Also got a bye week. Just I assigned those at random just because he doesn't have 16 films yet. So now we're gonna get in here to Following or Interstellar. I have not seen Following, so Despot, you're gonna have to rule on this one, or I will.
It's an easy one. It's Interstellar because Interstellar, I mean, it has its dumb plot holes and its bad character decision making and its shitty premise, but it does have very high highs. And also, like Platoon says, Cooper just completely forgets about his son and behaves as if Murph is his only fucking child.
Yeah.
But whatever. Following, it's shite. Like, just watch when my Nolan video eventually comes out. Just watch my review on Following, and you'll see where I'm coming from. It's an awful movie. This is an easy win for Interstellar.
All right, we're getting Interstellar on that one. Now we've got the Odyssey and Prestige. I know not everybody's seen the Odyssey, but you've heard us trashing enough.
I mean, I haven't seen the Prestige, and I know it's better than the Odyssey. So,
yeah, I mean, the Prestige is a brilliant movie. The Prestige, it could be Nolan's best movie. It does metafiction very, very well. That became a real trope. Like meta became massively overused in the 2010s, but it was great in the Prestige. He does. Like Nolan is doing a lot of things in this movie that directly reference how magicians do magic tricks. There's also a lot of misdirect. So he gives the audience a very clear answer as to, the various mysteries of the movie at the end.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if the audience doesn't want to accept that because it's too clean and neat and uninteresting. So the fans, there's all sorts of fan theories about the Prestige, and they're all bullshit. And I think Nolan kind of knew that, and he's doing the same thing that magicians do. He's misdirecting them and it's all in the movie. Like, you don't want to know the truth, you want to be fooled. And a lot of the fan theories are based on that idea. They don't really want the boring, dull truth of how these magicians are doing these tricks and what's going on behind the scenes. They want it to be even more brilliant and impressive than it is. But at the end of it all, it's really just a cheap trick. I don't want to go into too many spoilers in case people haven't seen The Prestige, but it's an excellent movie. And just, it looks amazing. The performances are brilliant. The casting is perfect. It looks like fucking Victorian London. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. It is really good. And the poll was 100% Prestige. So I will not leave the chat out ever again. Now that they've made a fool of me. So next up, we've now got The Dark Knight and Memento. Number 1 is Dark Knight. Number 2 is Memento. This feels like an easy one, but we'll see what the chat wants to say about this. What do you guys now? Oh, so Memento. This is our first time here because Memento got a bye week on the last one. So now we can actually talk about it because I haven't seen this one recently. As I was trying to watch all the Nolan stuff because I knew we were eventually going to do this like best of director thing, and so I haven't seen it in a long time. I really should go back and rewatch it because this was what really launched Nolan's career as Mr. Nonlinear storyteller, Mr. Postmodern cool, edgy guy. It's kind of his claim to fame.
When was the last time you saw Memento?
Oh shit! It's been a decade or more.
Well, yeah, I mean, Memento is excellent. He's fumbling around with non-linearity in his debut. He's doing it to imitate Quentin Tarantino and to hide how broken his plot is.
Yep.
And also because I think he just wants to sort of experiment and be an auteur director. He really comes into his own with the idea in Memento, and it also helps that his brother helped him write this. Jonathan Nolan, whereas he had written his debut entirely by himself, and as we alluded to earlier, Nolan just isn't a talented writer. But yeah, Memento, it's a great movie, and the main character in it, Leonard, is one of Nolan's best characters, and it's also probably his most effective twist at the end when you find out that Leonard he's conditioned himself for various reasons, to give himself a reason to live after he's lost the capacity to make new memories. But in the process of doing this, he has twisted himself into this kind of monster. And the ink that he has all over himself, his tattoos, you realize it's kind of a metaphor for the scars of his condition and almost like a new skin that represents the monster he's become. It's excellent. Memento is just such a great movie. And it's not trying to do too many things. It's not perfect. There are a couple of minor issues with it. And I think Nolan cheats a little bit with Leonard's condition. There are a couple of scenes where Nolan needs him to remember things he shouldn't remember and forget things that he should have forgotten, that he needs him to forget. But how can he forget those things and remember these things? It doesn't make a lot of sense a couple of times, but overall, Memento is an excellent movie, and The Dark Knight is plainly overrated. So I would give this one to Memento, but it's very close in the chat. Chat, if there's anyone who wants to shill Memento and get it over the line, now is the time. Just hit 2.
Yeah, type 1 for Dark Knight, 2 for Memento. Platoon, what do you think here? I need you to weigh in on this one.
Well, there's a common theme emerging, which is with Nolan films, I've either not seen them or only seen them once. I've never seen Memento. So just by knowledge, I'd have to say The Dark Knight, but I mean, I can't compare it. I think I would agree The Dark Knight is overrated. I remember actually thinking it slightly even at the time, because I must have been was I in school when this came out? I think, when did this come out? Was it 2000?
I think it might have been right at 2000, I believe.
The Dark Knight?
No, I'm sorry, Memento. Dark Knight.
When was The Dark Knight out? Because I remember, who was I arguing with about Heath Ledger's performance? Because it was a girl, and I remember accusing her of just... I think, I might have been just coming to the end of school by that point. So like something around then. Yeah, because I was in class and I was being edgy and countercultural. So I was like, well, The Dark Knight isn't that good and you just like it because you fancy Heath Ledger and he's dead. I was a very sensitive child, obviously, as you can tell from that. But I'm afraid I haven't seen Memento, so I can't judge.
Yeah,
well,
that's not even
talking about Memento. Despot is saying Memento.
Guy Pearce's performance in this, it is up there with Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an iconic performance. There are things in The Dark Knight that are iconic. At its best, The Dark Knight is incredible. The problem is it's just got a lot of shit that people forget about and just ignore because they're so distracted by the iconic shit. Deservedly iconic shit. But that Guy Pearce performance is incredible.
It really is. So now we've got Inception, which also had a bye week. Last one up against Batman Begins. What can you even say about this matchup here?
I would go Batman Begins on pure entertainment value. I'm with South Park in that being complicated doesn't make a thing good. Inception is complicated. It's well made. I can't say I remember any particular character arc, journey. I remember the devices used. I think it's an interesting film, but it's not what I watch movies for.
So it's a type 1 for Batman Begins, type 2 for Inception. You know, something that I liked about Inception was, and it's very interesting for a Nolan film, is that he didn't try to explain how the dream machine worked. And I thought that was a brilliant choice, because it's some things, like we make fun of nanotech, we make fun of Avatar and unobtainium and whatever. But something recently that I've noticed is sometimes when you try to explain shit too much, like Ironheart is a really good example of them trying to over-explain how smart she is and using a bunch of terminology that doesn't make any sense in context, and it ends up sounding really stupid. Whereas if you just sort of hand wave away, there's a tube and it sort of connects to their wrist somehow, kind of, and they share a dream. Anyway, we're in the dream now. That's what you need to fucking know. And I think that actually works really well. And I think the movie would have been dragged down terribly by trying to go into the minutia and the detail and how scientific the shared dreaming and blah, blah. Nope, the army made this, they can stab each other. Anyway, we're in the dream. So now we're to market. Let me just tell you how this works.
And well, that was the thing, because it's the last thing you just said, which is one of the things that does still drag the film down. You're right, they don't go into the detail on the mechanics of the machine. That definitely helps. But this is a Nolan film, and so you never ever escape clunky exposition. So yeah, they don't explain that. Then they take you into a dream world, and then you get exposition anyway, saying this is what the plot is. And I don't find that very satisfying. It's like, so now we're in a dream, but it's like a dream within a dream, and we have to go to the dream space within the dream within a dream, but we can't do this within the dream space because that'll upset the meta dream. And then if the meta dream gets upset, then it's like this is bad and everyone dies. Like, okay, if you tell me that, that's true. Fine, whatever. I want to learn about your characters now, please.
Oh man, the chat is going with you. I really thought this was going to go to Inception all the way. Despot, are you going to overturn the chat and Platoon here? Or are you going to go Batman Begins?
So when I was rewatching all the Nolan movies, the only movie that was way worse than I remembered was Inception. Inception is a shite film. That's going to be one of the hot takes in my Nolan video.
Oh,
it is one of two things is true here. Either the entire movie is a dream, in which case the plot holes don't matter because nothing, like you can have dreams that are illogical, but you still believe it when you're in the dream. Or it's just very poorly written and it's full of plot holes. And that's not the major issue though. The major issue for me is that the main character, Cobb, is just a horrible cunt. He's a terrible villain and a total bastard. And this movie is convinced that he's a good guy on a redemption arc. This is absolutely not the case. He's fucking awful. The very act of committing Inception on some random ass corporate guy, that's just a horrifying crime. Like he committed Inception against his wife, and it drove her insane. It drove her to suicide. So he knows how dangerous Inception is. He knows that it's like a cancer of the mind, and he agrees to do it again anyway. He's such a cunt. He's a horrible, horrible guy. There's no redemption here. He's committing an atrocity. He spends the movie committing an atrocity and actually grabbing this guy, Cillian Murphy, that character, and helping him destroy his own mind. It's horrible. And that's to say nothing of the complete failure to communicate the dream world. So when I was doing my review of this, when I was writing the script, I started looking at how different artists have communicated the world of the dream. Platoon, have you ever attempted to read Finnegan's Wake?
No, I don't think so.
So Ulysses is James Joyce's attempt to communicate the language of the waking mind, and he does this through stream of consciousness writing. Mm-hmm. And Finnegan's Wake was his follow-up. It took him 17 years to write, and it's one of the most bizarre novels ever written. It's very divisive. A lot of people felt that Joyce was wasting his time and genius on Finnegan's Wake. And I was reading excerpts from it, because it's supposed to communicate, Ulysses is the mind, the waking mind, and Finnegan's Wake is it's Joyce's attempt to communicate the language of the sleeping mind. And it's really interesting, some of it. I'm not sure how good or bad it is. Fuck knows. But if you've attempted to read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's very, very interesting. It's a very interesting examination of the sleeping mind. And there's other things. There's other works you can look at that examine the dream world very successfully. And Inception is just very bland. The locations in it don't look anything like a dream. There's one scene where Paris folds in on itself, and that's kind of cool. there's literally two paradoxes, but it's the Penrose stars, and it's really just a gimmick in the movie. And he uses gravity shifts a couple of times, and that's about it. If you even if you look at the sort of limbo sequence where Leonardo DiCaprio and his wife build their own city, it just looks like a kind of big, hideous Soviet skyscraper city or something. It's fucking awful. Like, this is the best you could come up with dreaming for 50 years, this hideous fucking Soviet capital. It's disgusting. So it's very dull looking. It's supposed to be about the world of dreams, and it looks more like the world of action B movies. Inception's fucking shite, man.
Man, this is crazy. You know what? I thought most people loved Inception. I did, but damn. All right. Despot, yeah, I think you're gonna have to run these polls because I think it's only going to my audience, and I'm pretty sure yours is larger. So you should run a couple of these to get because I think your audience's numbers are not coming into the poll thing. StreamYard is not working. I don't know why. Not with everybody watching. It's over on the side under widgets. I don't know if you have access to that. Here. Yeah. See if you can.
Widgets. And pick a winner for what?
You just got to down at the bottom, new poll. Let me get rid of these old ones here.
Does that mean because the Batman Begins Oppenheimer thing finished, I think, on 52-48, the magic Brexit ratio, that we actually need to run the vote again?
I don't know. I think we just picked that one. The audience can decide. You're going to hit new poll and then just title. I've just been putting pick a winner and then put your two options in there, number one, number two, and then run it.
What's the number one option?
It does. For this one, we'll go with Interstellar and Prestige, because that's our next two is Interstellar and Prestige. Let me clean this up a little bit. Sorry, I'm moving my losers out of the way here.
All right, I think I got this here. So yeah, Interstellar number one, The Prestige number two.
There we go.
Type your winner in the chat.
I'm going to start cleaning this up a little bit, which is going to make it look weird, but whatever.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of The Prestige over Interstellar. I'm actually surprised because I thought that I would get more pushback for. I'm definitely getting some pushback for Inception, which I expected, but I was expecting to get a bit more pushback on Interstellar, but it seems that Interstellar is not quite as popular as Reddit makes it out to be.
Well, I think it's a good movie, and I'm fairly sure it's pretty popular. I just think in this particular, like I said, this was all pretty random, and it's not as good as Prestige. I mean, it's a good movie, but I mean, just between the two of them, what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah. All right. So The Prestige takes it there, and then Memento and Batman Begins. So you want me to do another poll for Memento and Batman Begins?
Yes, sir.
All right. 2 seconds.
We'll just kind of, I don't remember who beat what now. We'll just watch the replay because it was all way too messy.
For Memento and 2, Batman Begins.
I'll just stop that.
I think this is a pretty easy one. Oh. Sorry, guys. I've fucked up the poll. I've written 1-1 Memento 2-2 Batman Begins. But just type 1 for Memento and 2 for Batman Begins. Yeah, this is simple to me. Batman Begins, really fun, entertaining Batman movie, but not, it's certainly no masterpiece. Although I could see some people thinking, Memento's pretentious and dull. Batman Begins is fucking awesome because it's the Batmobile and all that shit.
Yeah. Pretty cool Batmobile. Yeah, it's going hardcore. Memento. So then lastly, you've got Memento and Prestige, which is pretty fun matchup there. And while you're creating that, we're gonna end up doing a menage a trois for the finale, because that's just kind of how this is working out here. On the downside is what I'm setting up here. We'll do some super chats after we decide the best, and then we'll do some super chats, and then we'll do the worst. So yeah, Memento's definitely winning. And then when you get the poll for Prestige and Memento, that's a tough one. Before you put that poll up, what are you thinking on that one? because they're both pretty. They're very Nolan. They're both extremely Nolan in being told at a time and kind of giving you a lot of the plot before, and you, like you said with the Prestige, you don't really want to accept that. Memento is about a guy who's just crazy and killing people. You do get a lot of hints about that early on, if I recall. You get the out of sync timing. You get the this is actually a little bit of science. It's not just magic. Like, you get all the Nolan things. Both of these movies are extremely Nolan at his most Nolanist before he got totally up his own ass and started being overly clever with Tenet and Odyssey and all that. So it's a tough call to decide which of these is better. And I think ScarJo is going to be the decider on.
Yeah. Do you know what, Greg? I'm with you. Like, this is fucking peak ScarJo. Like, Scarlett Johansson is she's one of the most beautiful women in the world. He captures it's one of those movies where a famous beauty is caught at her most beautiful. Like with Carrie Fisher, it's Empire Strikes Back. And with Scarlett Johansson's Prestige, she's just, incredibly beautiful in it, and her tits look amazing. So for that, Prestige clinches it for me.
Platoon, you said you had not. Well, you haven't seen either one of these.
I have not seen either of them. No.
You could flip a coin.
Oh, that just feels unfair.
All right, run that poll, Despot. Let's see what the audience thinks. I think we're both thinking Prestige. We'll just see if they overturn us just out of spite.
Yeah, it's going to be very close. I would guess the Prestige is going to win.
Number 1 is Memento. Number 2 is Prestige.
Yeah, chat, type number 1 if you think Memento is the better movie. Type 2
instantly.
The Prestige is better.
Instant.
It'll take a little while to come in. Yeah, it's looking like the Prestige has got it, but Memento stands. If you want to come in and save Memento, because this is the official ranking. Like, this video here will forever go down as the official ranking of Nolan videos. So if you want to save Memento's reputation, now's your chance. Yeah, it's looking like it's the Prestige, which, to be honest, I agree with. I reckon this probably is Nolan's best.
Oh man, I was gonna try to run my own too. I wonder if I can do that in my own chat. I'll do that for the worst of. We'll see if we can see if I can get both of them. Yeah, it sucks we can't link it. We may have to link these and run it as a podcast or something. I don't know. All right. So Prestige takes it for best of all time for Nolan. And yeah, that is official. That's going in the history books. That's actually, I'm sending this to Chris. I know him as Chris. We're on a first name basis. Let me run through some super chats and then we'll talk about these worst ones here, because that'll be kind of just as interesting. So let's get back to where we were. Oh, this handsome fella threw away some memberships. Lego Man. Where the heck am I? There it is.
Oh, sorry, Greg.
Let's see here. Lego Man for 20 pounds. The Dark Knight Rises, where cops come out of the sewers clean shaven and with pristine uniforms. Can't fault him on Memento. It works well with Nolan's timey-wimey style. Yeah, they tried to show them looking all sweaty and disheveled in one particular scene. Just did not work out. Joey Bag of Donuts for $2. The Dark Knight's plot is awful and full of holes. Yeah, all three of them, they have some serious plot hole problems. I think the worst of which is the city's about to blow up with a nuclear device, but I stopped and set a building on fire in a very specific bat pattern. That was probably my favorite plot hole. But yeah, there were some pretty goofy ones there. Lego Man with 10 Despot memberships. Very nice.
Thank you very much, Lego Man. Appreciate it.
Hostman's Lounge for $4 or $5 rather. Hans Zimmer composed a score for Interstellar without reading the script. Apparently Nolan gave him a script note with a single sentence, "Don't leave me."
I suspect Zimmer knew that it was going to be sci-fi because it's very heavily influenced by Also Sprach Zarathustra, which is the more famously known as 2001: A Space Odyssey. It uses that big opening. But the rest of Also Sprach is also great. And you can hear a lot of that. It's a 30-minute long piece. You can hear a lot of that in Hans Zimmer's score. Yeah. So he obviously knew that it was going to be a big sci-fi sort of 2001 Space Odyssey type epic.
That's a random name, $5 Canadian. To be fair, if Timothy Chalamet was my son, I too would cross a wormhole into death, into a death world to forget about him. Well, if it was Chalamet, and then if it was what was it, one of the Franco kids, or who was he when he grows up?
He's fucking Casey Affleck.
That's right. Casey, yeah, Franco, Affleck, they're both molesters. Sleazer Caesar, $5 Canadian, Despot Greg, and Platoon. What a group of fucking chumps. Thank you guys for all the awesome content and all the advice. Despot, you're the man.
Thank
you very much. Sleazy, keep it sleazy. The great U.S. treasure hunt for $10. This bracket should go backward and forward. Follow both directions. Well, thank you very much for the super chat, but that was already the plan. But you helped. $2 from Hostman's Lounge. Tenet could be better if you could hear the movie. Yeah, the whole mask thing was. God,
you know what it is, though? It wouldn't even make it better. It would just make it more obvious how awful it is.
Yep. Hearing the dialogue in many of these movies does not improve them.
Yeah, Nolan's just not good. He's up there with Lucas as far as like the dialogue just sucks. You need and honestly, in my opinion, Del Toro, like these guys all want to write, and they're good directors. They're not good writers. And there's a huge difference, but everybody wants to be an auteur. Bass player got at that time, 2011, for $5. According to Nolan, Dunkirk was just a bunch of guys standing on a beach while the occasional Ju-87 flies overhead.
No, not the occasional Junker. One Junker flies overhead and bombs them once, and no artillery. Like there's no artillery, no long range artillery coming in. Yeah, it's a. As in terms of production design, the movie's a failure, unfortunately. Although the RAF dogfights look really good in Dunkirk, and some of the naval scenes, like when the Junker bombs and downs a small ship, that's really good.
Glib facsimile for $10. Tenet only makes sense if you realize that it's a metatextual narrative on quantum suicide, which is the pill in the beginning not killing him, and the protagonist having more effect on causality than everyone else. I don't know, that still makes it make sense, but at least it's something to go on and not just confusing as shit and just kind of dumb. Aggrieved Zoomer for $5. What are your three's thoughts on the recent rise of internet horror movies inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's and Backrooms? Personally, he's pessimistic. They're all crap. Famously, I am not I'm a real bitch when it comes to horror stuff. Don't love it. Mrs. Owen doesn't love it. I think horror's cheap. I think that's a huge part of the rise of this stuff, is because you can do creative stuff cheaply with horror. Like Backrooms was pretty cheap, relatively speaking. It was still several $million. Obsession was cheap, really cheap, but you can just get super creative with that stuff, and it doesn't have to have a franchise name. So a company like an A24 is going to pick it up. They're going to run with it because they don't really care. They throw a couple $1 million at it. It's not like it's some franchise thing. So they can play, they have the creative freedom. And then shockingly, when you don't have constraints and you don't have a committee telling you what to do and who to cast, and, you know, the Odyssey trying to clearly be Oscar bait with its casting and all that, you end up with a better product.
I think that might apply to Obsession. It doesn't really apply to Backrooms, and it definitely doesn't apply to FNAF, because those two, I mean, there's two overlapping things with those. Backrooms is already, as I understand it anyway, an extremely popular online series. So it's not franchise in the sense of Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, but it's got an established built-in fan base that is very keen to see a live-action version. And that's even more true of FNAF, which I don't even count as a horror movie. That's a video game movie. So the two things that Hollywood are doing, Obsession is the standout because it mostly is original. It comes from basically nowhere. It does everything you've just described. It has almost infinite creative freedom. Nobody understood what it was. Very tiny budget, and that freedom creates something good. In the case of the other two, that is Hollywood just doing franchise mining, but for non-film franchises. That's video games, and that is internet web series. The case of the Backrooms is going to prompt a huge number of more Hollywood studios trawling Reddit for any kind of vaguely viral story they can use. And video game movies are already the next big trend, and that trend has already started terribly because both the Mario movies were shit. Legend of Zelda, unfortunately, ain't really going to be very good, I don't think. And Minecraft was terrible too. These are just it's another form of soulless franchise slop. The Obsession is the interesting example because it is horror and it is unique and independent.
Yeah.
I will say, if you enjoyed Backrooms, it's a good movie. It's not great. If you want to, it's very similar to a 90s movie called Being John Malkovich, which is one of the great sort of forgotten masterpieces of the 90s. And I don't use the term masterpiece lightly. If you liked Backrooms, watch Being John Malkovich, because it is remarkably similar to Backrooms and much, much better.
Yeah, that's a fun 90s one there. Dreadnought Logan for $5. If you have to watch a movie twice to understand it, it fails as a story. You should be able to understand what you're watching. It's cool elsewise, which I think is supposed to be crap elsewise. Bass Player again for $5. I rewatched Inception recently. Hands down, Nolan's most overrated film, even more so than The Dark Knight. The only thing that saves it is its cast. Man, I am in the minority on that one. I rewatched it recently. I loved it. Postman's Lounge for $5. Inception also takes a lot from Satoshi Kon's Paprika, a very interesting movie that deals with dreams. Did you hear about that one in your dream research, Despot?
I think is this an anime? Satoshi Kon's Paprika?
I
have seen, I think I saw that somewhere in there, yeah. Satoshi, what's it called? Kon. Yeah, it's an anime movie. And in response to that comment, I've looked at the comparisons, some of them, and it doesn't take a lot, because that's genuinely surreal. It takes a little, like the hallway scene is similar, but to suggest that that Inception's visuals are fundamentally surreal or anime-like is ridiculous. They're quite dull and action B-movie. I think that this notion that it's heavily influenced by Satoshi Kon's Paprika, I think this is just sort of Nolan's part of his pretentious marketing. It's nothing like as surreal as that. I wish it was, because then I might actually like it, but I find it's a very dull interpretation of dreams.
While and I $5. Here's my ranking: Tenet at the bottom, then Inception, then Dunkirk, Dark Knight Rises, Odyssey, Batman Begins, Prestige, Dark Knight, Interstellar, Oppenheimer, Memento. Only top 2 are above a 9 out of 10. What do you think?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
good ranking.
Yeah. Bass Player again for $5. Rewatched Prestige a few days ago, and it still holds up, and still finding little things about it 20 years later. I want to watch that.
When I was rewatching it, you notice small things, small hints. Some of them are hints about what's really going on. Some of them are misdirections, and some of them allow the viewer to come up with new theories, new ideas. It's a very dense movie in terms of there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Yeah,
I want to watch that one again. Panzer Blitz R&R, $10. Platoon, I know your review is surely going to contrast the Nolan movie with history, but you can also contrast it with the 1997 Odyssey miniseries. That would be with, no, I can't think of his name, especially with how dreary the movie was. Armando Sante is the 97 one, I think.
Not seen the 97 one. I'd really like this one not to be a multi-week project, so if I can possibly get away with it, I would. I mean, there were some interesting comparisons on EFAP yesterday with Troy, funnily enough, which is kind of not all that highly regarded as a masterpiece work of cinema, but actually is way more like accurate to the story. It's overall, both the themes, also the characters, and the general sense of adventure and heroism that comes out of that. Like a Slop movie from the early 2000s kind of beats a highbrow movie from the 2020s was the conclusion. So there might be some mention of that. If I've got the time, I'll definitely check out some other Odyssey adaptations, but if not, I think it will just be the movie and the poem.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep mine short as well. I'm just kind of pissed. Joey Bag of Donuts for $2. Worst sounding mixing, Nolan or Markiplier? I can tell you Interstellar, the sound mixing in Interstellar was, we just watched that one last night, and holy shit. Without captions on screen, it's not watchable. There are sound effects that are going to blow the speakers out, and then there's McConaughey all of a sudden he's just talking like this.
I know what you're talking about, Greg. Like, I couldn't disagree more. I think that the sound mixing on Interstellar is actually really good. I mean, I don't see your problem with it.
Look, I just gotta go, Murph. Get away, Dad. Murph, don't leave like this, Murph. Don't do it. Fuck. But I didn't see Iron Lung. Sorry, I didn't want to skip Joey there. Did you guys see Iron Lung at all? Was the mixing terrible?
I don't remember it being notably terrible. Not on a Nolan level. I could understand all of the dialogue.
Yeah. That's yeah, he tends to get the sound effects. Interstellar, or not Interstellar, Inception, I think, is famous for that. Everybody just, that's like the meme, just the giant bass hit. That's a random name, $5 Canadian. Cooper literally left Timothy on Earth to die with the blight, then threw himself into a black hole. Can't blame him. Jack Grandone, $20. To be honest, I never cared for Christopher Nolan's films. I saw the last two Batman films he did years ago and can't remember what happened in them, but keep it up, you guys do great work. Thank you very much for the kind words. And then lastly, that's a random name, $5 more Canadian. When Cooper watches the message from his kids and learned his grandson passed, he actually cheered knowing his son's blood won't mix with Kylie Jenner's. Oh, all right. So Prestige is number one, and then real quick here, let's go back downward. You got Dark Knight Rises and Insomnia, and this time we're voting on worst. So when you pick a number, this time you're picking which one is the worst of the two. Despot, what do you got? Dark Knight Rises or Insomnia?
I'm just gonna throw in Dark Knight Rises because it's so fucking long. Insomnia at least has the decency to be an hour and a half.
We'll give that one. I don't think a lot of people have seen Insomnia. Dunkirk or Inception? Now this one's kind of interesting because Dunkirk apparently is pretty boring, and Inception has got a really bad. A lot of folks are not loving.
Hold on, I want to do a poll on this. I really want to do a poll.
Yeah. Pull that one up, and then while we're talking about it, you can also create another one for Tenet and Oppenheimer. You just don't have to run it live. You can just have it ready to go.
I'd probably put Dunkirk as worse than Inception, just because Inception, for much as it frustrates me, there's more to it and there's more to think about. And there's always that lingering sense that maybe I just didn't get it. So it's interesting enough for me to think that. Dunkirk is one of those you only need to see it once. And yeah, there's nothing new.
Yeah, well, it's up there, chat. So if you think Dunkirk is worse, type 1. If you think Inception is worse, type 2. It's interesting. You know, I mean, there's a lot more to think about in Inception, at least. And Inception has some, like, it's not a terrible movie. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's some good action. There's some amazing action sequences, like when they ride the kick all the way up. That's a brilliant action sequence. Some good acting. Marion Cotillard is very beautiful in it. She's got world-class pair of tits. So there's things to like about Inception, sure. And the music's excellent. You know, that Inception, that has its own Wikipedia page. It became so famous. So there's things to like. Dunkirk, the problem with Dunkirk is it's a kind of a one and done. And you're like, well, that was definitely a movie. And there's no reason to ever watch it again.
Those of you watching on my channel, I'm just going to do a separate poll. It just pops up right in the, you don't have to type numbers or whatever. It just pops up right there in the chat because we can't do both. This is not the future I was promised. The Jetsons said it was going to be so much cooler than this, but whatever. It is what it is. I've got Dunkirk winning with 56%, or winning the losing. So Dunkirk worse than Inception. Seems like your chat is also the same. We'll move them on up. And then Tenet and Oppenheimer. Which one of those is worse? I'm going to get a pull up on mine. What are you guys thinking there? Tenet, Oppenheimer.
I mean, that's not even a question. Like, it's obviously Tenet. What are we even doing here? I am interested to see by how big a margin Tenet wins. Like, is it 100%, or are there some people who just hate Oppenheimer that much? That's what I'm interested in seeing here. When I tried to rewatch Tenet, it was yesterday. I was checked out of the movie inside 25 minutes. I just didn't give a fuck about anything, and the movie insists on dragging on for another near 2 hours. Fuck, it's such an absolute slog to get through. It's almost impressive that Nolan managed to make a movie that bad. It's actually kind of an achievement.
So, mine's running. Interestingly, Tenet's winning, but 70% in my poll. I'm actually quite shocked about that.
Wow. I'm telling you, man, there's a lot of hate out there for Oppenheimer.
I think it won so many awards, and there is a lot of hate for Nolan, which I can sort of get because there are things to complain about with his stuff. So I just think that because it won so many awards and it is Christopher Nolan, I think that Oppenheimer is a little overhated. If you want to create one final poll, and we'll do a menage a trois on this one, you can just add an extra option on the polling thing, and I'll do the same on mine.
All right.
We'll pop one up here. All right. Yeah, Tenet 1, 76-24 on mine. Let me pop one more up here, and you get one too.
Okay, so there's mine there. Worst movie, number 1, Dark Knight Rises, number 2, Tenet, number 3, Dunkirk. I don't think Dunkirk has a chance here. I think it's going to be 1 or 2. Oh, 50% already.
Interesting.
And mine is also live in my chat. You guys just want to click on something there. Which one?
I'm going to increase Dunkirk's chances of being chosen by letting everyone know that Quentin Tarantino thinks it's the second best movie of the 2010s.
Yeah, I think Tenet's going to take this one. It just was so confusing. It was very, like I said, I think it was Nolan trying to be too clever and starting to kind of buy his own hype after Inception and everything, and going with these super practical effects and this convoluted storyline and all this. It was
being very, very mad to try to justify it all. Like one of the characters says, one of the characters turns around and says, "Don't try to understand it," so that the Nolan stands on Reddit can talk about how, you're not supposed to try to understand the movie. That's the point, bro. Yeah. And then there's the other elements of the movie where Michael Caine is called Sir Michael because he's supposed to just be the guy that shows up to give information because he's like I don't fucking know, a parody of spy thriller. I don't fucking care. It has all these meta elements to try to justify how awful it is, and it's a pretentious pile of wank.
Oh, I've got 58%, 60% Tenet on mine, compared to 25 Dark Knight, 14 Dunkirk. Dunkirk is not, I don't think anybody loves that one, but it just...
Oh, what an absolute fucking recommendation from Kellen Winslow, 1988. Of the 2010s, I'd rather watch Upgrade, a far better sci-fi film. Yeah, if you haven't watched Upgrade, watch Upgrade. That is a fucking great movie. One of the best 2010s movies.
All right, well, there it is. There's your official stuff. Tenet being the worst, and Prestige, which I already erased on accident, being the best. And we'll just get rid of those. Yeah, I could make it pretty, but I'm just gonna.
It was a bit of a surprise for me. I wouldn't have thought the Dunkirk, but do you know what it is? I think it's just because the movie has that little impact on people and they have no reason to go back and watch it. And I think fundamentally, if you go to see a movie like that, well, you want to see the spectacle on screen that communicates the scale of the Dunkirk disaster and the staggering scale of the actual evacuation.
Yeah.
The other problem with the movie, in my opinion, it encourages the pop history interpretation of Dunkirk as the great miracle of Dunkirk, when in fact, when you look at the casualties, it was a fucking disaster. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, and they did a great job to get the army out. But Jesus, it was a very, very heavy cost when you look at the casualties involved. Like, it was a horrible defeat. It was the worst. I'm pretty sure it was the worst British military defeat in history. And yet it has this mythos of being some great miracle that they should all be proud of. Fuck me. Talk about the power of propaganda.
All right, I got one last thing to talk about here, and then we're going to wrap it up with this. We'll move the other sections to the next video. Moana. So it looks like the last video we talked about projections, and I think I was wrong big time on Odyssey. Obviously, I think that's going to make way more than the 550 that I predicted. I really thought that was people just weren't interested. I didn't predict people were going to hate it. I didn't really think anybody cared about the, casting controversies, whatever. I just figured the trailer just doesn't look like all that. It just looks okay. And I didn't think audience was going to flock to it. I didn't really predict that. So I'm wrong on that one. And I also predicted that Moana live action was going to make $1 billion fucking dollars because it's Disney live action. And apparently people just love their fucking slop. But I was incorrect, thankfully, on the second one. I don't mind being wrong on that one because it is absolutely bombing. And I could not be more excited for that. My wife. So yesterday when I went to see the Odyssey, we did our own little Barbenheimer. We did Odyssey, And I took the 4 kids, the older kids, to see Odyssey, and she took the 2 younger ones to see Moana. And she said exactly what you would think. It's boring. It's a less interesting version of Moana. It's dull. Something that she pointed out, which really was an interesting concept, was because she said, she's like, well, live action, which, I mean, live action is kind of a stretch. There's so much CGI in this movie to make this work. And she said the thing with the CGI is that it makes everything look so small. She said, when, like, at the end of the movie was her one example where they zoom out and everybody's on the mountaintop where Moana has just added her shell to the whatever. And she said, you can just tell that it was just basically a rug that they were all standing on, dancing on, and then everything else was just blue screen, gray screen, whatever it was. And as they zoom out, it felt so small because of the way that they film it with all the CGI and everything.
Did anyone watch this fucking monstrosity? I assume not.
No, well, that's the thing. It's an absolute bomb. I mean, it's flopping hard, which I'm shocked by.
I'm so fucking. I've never been happier to eat an L than on my prediction that this thing was going to make a ton of money, because I assumed, well, Lilo and Stitch, for reasons that are completely beyond me, managed to make $1 billion. So I guess this horrifying piece of shit will also make some staggering amount of money. Thank God I was wrong. And I hope that audiences have just fucking had it with Disney live action abominations. Like, what do you think? Do you think Disney's, audiences really are just sick of this shite? They don't want any more of Disney's slop.
I think Lilo and Stitch disproves that quite effectively, and to a lesser extent How to Train Your Dragon does too. I don't think the audiences will go and see it, but it has to be the right movie. Lilo and Stitch is kind of ideal. It doesn't just appeal to kids. It principally appeals to people who have since become parents. People who grew up watching that movie have since become adults. Many of them will be taking kids, or many of them will be going to relive a nostalgia of their early childhood, which gives it a huge appeal. Moana's, 8 years old? No one's really, I mean, there's a few people who have graduated a little bit since then, but it's not got the same like nostalgic appeal, and it doesn't have the same I want to introduce the next generation appeal. So all you're left with is, it's just like a slightly worse version of something I saw yesterday. But when something else comes along, How to Train Your Dragon, Lilo and Stitch, they'll be doing Lilo and Stitch 2. That will still do extremely well. And you could expect more of them. As they get more desperate, you should probably expect to see more of them. Everyone thought Snow White bombing would say, okay, so they're going to pause all their live action stuff, right? So close, but then Lilo and Stitch ruined everything. What a terrible film that was.
Yeah, and the top line here is interesting, because the reason I thought this was going to make so much money, and they pointed out here, is that the record smashing success of Moana 2. So yeah, I want to believe that the audience is like finally waking up to how shitty this is. But yeah, Lilo and Stitch just proves that. Moana 2 was clearly garbage. From the trailers, it was obviously garbage. Still made well over $1 billion, even after the opening weekend, and the news got around that, like, guys, this is obviously a television show that was smash cut into a movie just so that you morons would come drink from the slop trough. It still continued to make bajillions of dollars, well over $1 billion. So I'm disappointed in the audience. I want to be optimistic. I don't know. I think it's only a small little blip of good news on a bleak horizon of people just eating up Disney's bullshit.
I do wonder, though, at what point do Hollywood stop giving Dwayne Johnson vast sums of money to make flops? Because he did Red One, which was his Christmas movie, gigantic bomb. He had that fucking awful Oscar bait movie. Can't even remember what it was called. He played an MMA fighter. I watched that. It was shite.
Smashing Machine, right?
Rubbish. Totally fucking pointless movie. Just crap. It took a fairly boring guy and basically used his life as an excuse to give Dwayne Johnson a run at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Crap movie. And then this pile of shit. And there's a bunch of other stuff. Like, at what point did Hollywood just say, yeah, okay, stop giving this guy $40 million to make box office bombs?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely terrible. Well, that was at least some good news. Oh, we were going to talk Digger, but I guess we'll talk about that next time, because that is the trailer came out for that. Very strange. And I guess final point here. I really thought this was a bad summer as far as money went. It just felt like pretty okay movies, not even really okay, pretty tepid movies. And I thought, man, this must have been a really bad summer. Not a lot of big breakout hits. Supergirl, total flop. Even Toy Story, which it's making money, but it's not making the, just crazy amounts of money that you might think from a Disney Pixar movie. But then I looked it up, and it's one of the best movies, or one of the best years since 2019. And this is just this doesn't even account for the Odyssey, and it doesn't account for Spider-Man. So apparently this summer is making gobs of money. But when I look back and think, like, I have to actually look up the movies that came out this summer because I can't remember them.
Mando and Grog? You don't remember Mando and Grog?
Oh, yeah.
Platoon made a video on it, and he's even forgotten it.
Yeah, what's the explanation here? Because they're making tons of money, and then when I literally had to pull up a list of like what even came out this summer.
I didn't mean to go. I had no intention of going to see this, but I was out of the house and I thought, oh fuck it, so I went to see the The Devil Wears Prada 2. Absolute fucking garbage. It's just consumer pornography. It's essentially just a 2-hour-long advertisement for fashion brands.
Yeah.
Some of the costumes that Anne Hathaway wears in it, they were hilarious. Just the most horrifyingly ugly shit you'll ever see on an actress. Stuff like that, just horrible shit. It evaporates from your brain 5 minutes after you're out of the theater. This Mario Galaxy 2 or whatever that movie was called, I saw that too on the same day as Devil Wears Prada. Jesus, I was so fucking bored. Bored to death in the theater.
Yeah, Toy Story 5 was that way. I looked it up just before the show. It's just shy of $1 billion, like 960 or something. Yeah. We went and saw that. Kids haven't spoken about it. So nobody's even brought it up. It's as though we didn't see it.
Summer? I mean, Project Hail Mary was great, but that was a relatively early release. I'm pretty sure everything else has just been like, it's for all the money it's made, it's been a dreadful summer in terms of quality.
Yeah.
Well,
but
Obsession and Backrooms
are spending. It's,
Backrooms were surprise hits. They made a lot of money.
Has the audience just been conditioned? You want to get real conspiracy? Has the long con worked and the audience is now conditioned to just, if something is not offensive, right to their fucking face, calling them a piece of shit, that they'll just eat it up? The money is here. I mean, how do you explain this? Because I agree with you that the movies are absolute shit. But how do you explain the money is clearly flowing into theaters? What are these people seeing?
I mean, it might be to do with the framing, because it's down less than 2% from 2019 levels. That's really good, because 2019 was a fantastic year for box office. But it might be more a story about just how terrible preceding years have been, as opposed to how good this year is. This year is recovering to previous, like somewhere in the ballpark of a previously very good figure. But a huge amount of the 2010s growth is that you could guarantee $1 billion with every superhero movie you put out. Then after 2019, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness does really well, about 900 million, but then it craters. And that was still the majority of what, the most number of films put out were coming from Marvel, coming from Disney. And they really, really performed terribly. You had, people like Ant-Man doing barely 300 million. It might really be more a story that superhero movies have kind of dialed back a little bit, and production has shifted over to other less tainted brands. They've gone for known to be successful things. In terms of Toy Story 5, that was always going to make $1 billion. It was never not going to do that. So the recovery is from a really low base, as opposed to people being blown away by the quality of the things they're watching. It's also, for the first time in a few years, the predominant movie is not going to be in the superhero genre. And I do think there is a non-superhero premium for stuff like the Odyssey. People are so sick of the Marvel aesthetic that every time they see something that looks even vaguely real, they flock to it. So I think a lot of it is benefiting from just how shit 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 all were. And now they're kind of reaping the benefits of having a few more grounded or just different and semi-realistic type stories that people want to see, plus a bunch of nostalgic stuff.
It does go to show just how bad things were, that you can still, like, it's still a record year since 2019, despite utter fucking garbage like Mando and Grog, Supergirl, and the fucking Moana remake. You know, the Moana remake obviously being made 8 years after the fact because Dwayne Johnson didn't want to age out of the role. Supergirl, just a fucking holdover for it's her medal in 1996. It's just a holdover from a previous decade. And then fucking Mando and Grog, Kathleen Kennedy's swan song. So you can still have those box office bombs and have a record year. Shows just how appalling it has been in the past few years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's well, Caveat has a good how much that 10 billion is actually profit. And that is an interesting line. I didn't pull up the budget information for the Odyssey, but I do know the marketing campaign for that has been absolutely insane. Let's close out with some super chats here. Joey Bag of Donuts for $2. Tenet's main character is literally protagonist. Yeah, it's Nolan being super, super clever. That was his most up his own ass fart sniffing cleverest in that movie. Lego Man, £5 for a super sticker. Joey Bag of Donuts again, $2. Just wait for live action Toy Story. Oh yeah, I cannot wait for that one. They're gonna do live action everything. They are working on Princess and the Frog. They are working on live action Tangled. That's in the works, and it's all the slop must flow. Caveat Ties, $2. Been listening to your videos, first time on live. Thank you very much for joining us, and I appreciate you listening to the videos. And lastly, that's a random name, $5 Canadian. When Tony Stark snapped Thanos and his armies out of existence, Marvel's audience also vanished. What could Disney mean by this? Yeah, that was, they should have taken a break and they just didn't want to. All right. Well, look, for those of you that are still hanging around, we do really, really appreciate you sitting, listening to us gripe about the Odyssey and rank all of Nolan's movies. Wait a little while for Despot for his Nolan movie or video. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. And go check out Platoon's video on Supergirl. And hopefully this week, his video about the Odyssey.
That would be good. I also have a second channel thing actually on Toy Story 5, funnily enough, which I did the A/B title test. I think the winner, though, is Toy Story 5 is like watching someone stick their hand up a corpse's anus and use it as a sock puppet. So that's an option if you want the second channel, which is Lost Chord.
Oh man, yeah, Lost Chord. That's right. That's his second shorter type. Yeah, not the 2 hour long ones.
That video is only 1 hour long.
Chord like a musical chord.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Platoon, thank you for staying up late with us. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and we will see you all next time.
All right, guys.
Now for the awkward stare into the camera.